It's going to be an absolute blast on the show with you today. And those of you on the stream, we are kind of figuring some things out as John, the producer, gets logged in and gets into the stream. John, I just waved. They can't see you, John. Your camera's not on. But as John gets himself into StreamYard, he will be able to join the stream, and that will make everything run so much smoother and so much happier. But we appreciate you, Tolos, being on the show today. MC Jack Attack just got in his upset pick. Hurricane Jeff did as well. So I got you both. MC Jack Attack, he got his in at like 240. And I said, hey, man, sorry, those don't count. 240 upset picks don't count. They have to be sent in while we're on the air. So you got to wait until 3 o'clock on Thursdays, 3 o'clock on Fridays to get in your upset picks. Rules are rules. And now it's time to start cracking down. We're 3 weeks into this thing. You know how to get it done. And send us your upset picks for week number 4. Hurricane Jeff, he's taking Air Force plus 10.5 over Boise State. And MC Jack Attack is taking the USC Gamecocks plus 9.5 against Missouri. I think that one, MC Jack Attack, I think that one was worth 10.5. We lock them in on Wednesdays at 3 o'clock. So if the line moves, if the spread moves a little bit, we give everybody who picks the same game the exact same number of points. But here we go, Tolos. Big show for you today. And let's start right here in the upstate of South Carolina. What to do with college football's underperforming, underwhelming quarterbacks so far this season. There's a plethora of them, right? There's always a few that come in and they have all this expectation, and for whatever reason, they fail to reach it, right? Part of that is on us, right? It's on you. It's on me. It's on John. It's on MC Jack Attack. It's on every single one of us for putting a tremendous amount of pressure and preseason hype on these players. Because, I mean, let's be real. We want to read exciting news to start the season. We want to be told that everything is great. We want to be told that the team is going to be amazing and that everybody's going to go win a national championship. But the truth is, you simply cannot. And it's very hard to live up to those kinds of expectations because, you know, those kids aren't the ones who set the expectations. We're the ones who set the expectations, and we don't set low bars. You know, there's that old saying, set your goals low and you'll never be disappointed. We don't do that. We say this guy's going to throw for 4,000 yards. He's going to pull an Uncle Rico and he's going to throw it over the mountains. Well, that's not really the case. That is not necessarily how it goes down. One would think that a guy like Cade Klubnik, who came into the season, 4th-year starter at Clemson, he's been around forever. Most people don't realize this. He was a freshman when Taj Boyd was a senior. I'm kidding. But it does feel like he's been around at Clemson for a long, long time. He came in with all the hype that he came in with, right? And he didn't perform the way we thought he would as a true freshman, as a sophomore. We're like, okay, you know, you can't hit on every single one of your quarterback picks right out of the gate. That would be greedy. It would be stingy. It would be gluttonous to have that kind of performance out of all these quarterbacks in a row, right? To go from Taj to go to Deshaun and then to Trevor. And then even though a lot of Clemson fans weren't that high on him, Kelly Bryant. And then to, we know what happened with DJ. And we thought, okay, yeah, Clemson, they sputtered. They swing and a missed on DJ Uiagalelei. But we got this guy, Cade. We got this guy, Cade Klubnik, and he's going to come in and he's going to fix everything. And it took a little time to get things going. And we thought, okay. He was a C-level quarterback his first year as a starter. And then he was kind of a B-, B+ kind of quarterback last year. And we thought, okay, great. He's got another year with Garrett Riley. And now he's got everything going for him. This guy is going to be the bee's knees, the cat's meow. He is going to light college football on fire. 52 of 88 so far this season. 52 of 88. You want to do the math on that one? 59% completion. 633 yards. We already have several quarterbacks in college football that are over the 1,000-yard mark. So Cade's not even close to that. 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, QBR 43.8, the 101st ranked quarterback in college football right now. When it comes to QBR, how about that? He went from first to 101st. Rough fall. But hey, it's a long season. We're just now getting started. Maybe Cade could turn this thing around. Maybe against Syracuse on Saturday, Cade Klubnik finds his mojo and he gets himself back on track and he throws for 4 touchdowns and he throws for 300 yards. Maybe. It could happen. It could happen. I do think he's going to have the ball a lot in this game because Syracuse, we talked about it yesterday when we had on Matt Park, the play-by-play voice of Syracuse football. They throw the ball a lot, which means they move the ball quickly or they stop the clock when they get incompletions. And so Clemson has the opportunity to hold on to the ball for a lot, to get a lot of possessions, and give Cade Klubnik an opportunity to show his stuff, to prove that, wow, 4th-year bust is not a thing. He also has 30 carries for 59 yards and a rushing touchdown. And that's whatever. If you had 60 yards and a rushing touchdown through 3 games and you also had thrown for 1,000 yards, you're not talking about a guy that's the 101st best quarterback in college football when it comes to QBR. You're talking about a guy that's right there in the top couple. Madcraft, what happened to Cole? Cole is dealing with a little bit of a stomach bug today, but Cole is okay. He's just, taking the day off, taking it easy. We're working on the audio issue that hopefully we got fixed. I guess you can hear us now on the stream. It's a matter of, sorry, you guys don't really care about this kind of stuff, but StreamYard is our online video streaming platform, and you have to have multiple people in the stream, i.e. myself and John as he's getting into it here. And then we'll be fully operational 100% back to the way that it's supposed to be. But it is worth noting that Cade Klubnik, and most people are going to say, what? There's no way this is true. There's no way this is true. He actually had his best game against LSU, 230 yards, no touchdowns, and he did have an interception. But when you purely look at production, 230 yards passing in that game, and that is not mind-boggling, it's not incredible. But if you had a run game worth a damn in that game, 230 yards, you're probably going to win. Alas, it didn't happen. So what's behind him? Christopher Vezina is behind him. So, that old adage, the most popular guy on campus when you're losing is the backup quarterback. Christopher Vezina. What do you really get if you make that kind of move? And Dabo Swinney is not going to make that move unless Cade has a DJ Lagway type of game. I'm talking 5 interceptions in a single game. And that's not going to happen. I mean, let me rephrase that. It's probably not going to happen. 9 plays in 2 seasons. 19 of 34, 13 carries, 68 yards, 190 through the air. By all accounts, Christopher Vezina is still super green. If Christopher Vezina, if this was like a 1A, 1B scenario with Cade being good and Christopher being just barely not as good, I think Dabo probably would have made the switch mid-game at some point, right? Maybe in the Troy game, he says, you know what? There's just something wrong with Cade right now. He's not seeing the field right. He's not, maybe he's sick to his stomach. I don't know. Maybe the jitters got a hold of him. Let's go to Cade. Let's give him Christopher. Let's give him a shot. But he didn't do that. He's stuck with Cade Klubnik. Some would say that's Dabo Swinney being, loyal to a fault, Dabo Swinney. And, there's a valid argument for that. But Cade is super green. I went back and I was watching some plays from Christopher Vezina earlier this morning. And Yeah, I was watching the App State game because that's where he got most of his reps last year. And he was check down Charlie for the most part in that game. He was throwing a lot of 5, 6, 8 yard routes. So now we got this figured out. Let's add John to the stage.
Now we should be A-okay. Madcraft, JB, let me know if everything still sounds okay. Doing this mid-show, it certainly changes some things. But he was throwing a lot of short plays. Now, he has hit good throws. There was a couple of really nice throws in some highlight reels. There was one against App State where he hit Cole Turner off on the right-hand side. Beautiful throw up. I spotted the ball. Great catch, right? There was also a really nice rollout to his right where he throws into kind of soft triple coverage. It's zone coverage. You had two DBs kind of crashing down towards the line. You had I assume a safety kind of up high, and he found the receiver right there inside that triangle between the three of them. So he can make the throws. But can he do it when it's his team? Like, it's funny. We've seen Cade come in when it was still DJ's team, light up the scoreboard, looked amazing, right? But then once it becomes his team, it's a little bit of a different story. When the pressure is on you to go out and, oh man, I got to do this every single week now. I got to answer questions. I got to talk to the media. There's a lot to deal with. So, and again, it's all part of Dabo being who Dabo is. He is loyal to his guys. That's his MO, and it will always be his MO. Next on that list, Arch Manning is not starting off hot. 579 yards only. And again, this guy was supposed to make video board operators' hair fall out because they were going to have to go up and change out light bulbs all the time because he was just blowing up the scoreboard, right? We thought it was going to be like The Natural. He's smashing those little light bulbs. I don't think they use that anymore. I think everybody's gone to the LCD screen now. Dewey says John is Cole's replacement. There you go, John. Welcome to the show. You're officially a member. Wire to Wire with Diesel and John.
Hey.
Well, hey. I guess I'm just here to say that I don't have a whole lot to say. 580 yards for Arch, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 55% completion rate, 128 QBR, which is a lot better than Cade Klubnik, by the way. But 112 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. So he's got him on the ground a little bit, but he is not where Cade is through the air. Again, I know Arch has been in the program for a while, but this is his first year as the starter versus Cade Klubnik, who has been the starter now for a couple of seasons. Arch, though, has a lot of development left to go. A lot. He's sailing passes, especially on deep outs. He does what young quarterbacks do. I mean, he wants to do too much. He wants to turn every play into a 15-yard pickup. He just needs time. He just needs to develop. And, sometimes you got to go through it, right? I think that's where Steve Sarkisian is with Arch Manning. Like, all right, man, we can't only ever have you in games where things are going well. You need to experience some adversity. Still sitting at 2-1 though. So he's cutting his teeth the way that he should. And the optics of benching Arch Manning would just be absolutely terrible. And especially when you consider what he's got behind him, his backup, this guy's been around for a little while, been at 4 different schools now, I think. Matthew Caldwell, he came in from Troy last year, 1,600 yards, which is not great for an entire season, right? 13 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Is that guy good enough to be the starter at Texas? No, he's not. So you really don't have a better option at Texas. And I'm pretty sure Archie, Eli, all of them would decimate Texas football on their various shows and platforms. How about DJ Lagway? How about that? If I was DJ Lagway, I would suddenly develop a limp right now and make an excuse because 5 interceptions against LSU last week. That's awful. Awful. He needs a lot of development. So even though you got quarterback issues at all these schools, most of them don't have a better option. Clemson is probably the best setup to go to option 2, but that's not really saying a whole lot. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Going to keep talking Clemson football in the very next segment of the show. I'll be joined by Chapel Fowler of the State newspaper who covers Clemson. That is his beat. We have him on every other Thursday. If you have questions for Chapel, hit us up on the text line, 844-FAN-PHONE, or on the stream at the Fan Upstate on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Chapel Fowler of the State newspaper. Next.
the savings.
Tolos, the Clemson Tigers have a bigger task ahead of them than most people probably anticipated it would be before the season started. Yeah, they're still gigantic betting favorites against the Syracuse Orange on Saturday. But given the way they've played, is there any deficit that an opponent can't overcome? To talk about it, we bring in Chapel Fowler, beat writer for the Clemson Tigers from the state newspaper. Welcome into the show. Chapel, I just want to know, how tense was that room that you were in earlier this week as Dabo was given that 13-minute response? I said yesterday that if I was there, I would have gotten up and walked out, because I don't care how much money Dabo makes. I'm not going to get berated by somebody like that. Although I probably would have sat there and said, ooh, feed me more of this juicy audio. What was that like being in that room?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I believe it came in at 14 minutes and about, 38 seconds. The original ran, and then another 3 or 4 after a good follow-up question from our guy, Phil Kornblut. So, yeah, it was interesting. I certainly was not angry that it happened, because it gave me a really compelling thing to write about that day. It's funny that the question that started that whole rant it's not like he was responding to one specific question. He was asked about, what play would you like back on offense from the Georgia Tech game? And he answered that, and then just kind of kept going. And, I think I had a feeling that he probably wanted to say that.
Let's do this, man. We're having a hard time. We're having some audio issues getting you on the show. So what we're going to do is we're going to call you and put you on the air the old-fashioned way. How about that, Chapel? Sorry about that. So let me take you off the stream, and we're going to put you on air the old-fashioned way. John, there is Chapel Fowler's phone number right there. I'm going to have you give him a call, and we'll do this. This is what happens when I, who am not used to running the board for the way we do things in the modern style, we're gonna have to sort of change some things up and do it this way. So momentarily, Chapel Fowler going to be joining us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. But Tolos, he says it's John's fault. He says it's John's fault. So here we go. Let's go ahead and bring. You have to turn that one on turn that one up as well, there, John. Let's go ahead and bring on Chapel Fowler. If we got you, Chapel.
Yeah, I can hear y'all. You able to hear me? Sorry about that.
Loud and clear. Sorry about that.
Perfect.
Let's start back over. Let's start fresh with that question. How tense was it in that room as Dabo was going off on the Clemson media?
Yeah, I wouldn't really describe it as going off. I think he had a rant in mind, and it was just a matter of when it was going to happen. The question that started it, it's not like he was responding to a question and went on this tangent. He was asked, what's the play on offense you would have liked back against Georgia Tech on Saturday? And he answered that, and it just kind of kept going, and then suddenly it's 14 minutes later, and he's gone viral. It was not to the level of the Tyler from Spartanburg rant, everybody's favorite radio show moment. But I'd say it was probably about, 65% there, 65% there. He's totally fair and right to defend his record. I think he missed the point a little bit in terms of what people are frustrated about right now. But certainly made some points as well. As he does, he's a great speaker, public speaker, persuader. That's why so many good people have come to play for him. But yeah, it was an interesting Tuesday, but definitely one that you kind of got to be prepped for when you're covering such a character such as Dabo.
So, to something he said there, he said it's not fair that something about other programs aren't held to the same standard. But Dabo has always talked about the Clemson standard. So in your mind, what does Clemson standard even mean in 2025?
Good question. I think Clemson's annual standard is the high expectations that they've put themselves in position to earn. And that's being I'd say a legitimate playoff contender every single year. That is what this fan base expects, because that's what, for years, over the past decade or so, Clemson has been, 7 of the last 10 playoffs, with the caveat that it was 6 straight and then a drought before making it last year as an automatic bid. But this is a team and a program that has shown that it can compete at the highest level, and it has, and it's beat the best teams. So when that's not happening, and when you're starting a season 1 and 2 with one of the most star-studded returning rosters in the sport, I think I get why people are a little bit ticked off at that, or maybe just disappointed or even confused. I don't think every Clemson fan right now is, just raging or saying, we got to get rid of Dabo, or what in the world is going on. I think some of them are just kind of disappointed, and they see the progress, and, here's what's been put on the field that's been close, but not all the way there. How do we get it there? I don't think every fan is going scorched earth right now. I think there's just some frustration about some of the trends. They've lost 5 of their last 6 games now against power conference opponents, dating back to that Louisville loss last November. Stuff like that's not making the playoff standard. That's just like, being a competent team standard. So there's definitely some fair concerns right now, that I'd say.
That's interesting that you said that, Chappell. You said playoff contender. I would argue that Final Four is the standard at Clemson. I know we've only had 1 year of the 12-team college football playoff, but prior to this year, Clemson was getting into that 4-team playoff, winning the semifinal games and winning national championships on occasion while in it. So is that where we really are? Is that just making it is the standard? Just sort of being there is the standard? I mean, because I sure remember Clemson beating up on Alabama in the national championship. I remember them scoring 60, 65 points and holding their opponents to less than 2 touchdowns on a week in, week out basis. If just making it is the standard, then what we've seen the last 2 years, last year and so far this year, could certainly be that standard. But to me, the Clemson standard is Final Fours and national championship games.
Yeah, I think they're working their way back up to that extra high level of standard right now. I just don't think the last few years have told us that they're deserving of that standard like every single year. And again, that's a concern in itself. But at the same time, it's very hard to win and hard to maintain a top 4 program for a decade straight. I just default to getting into the field because, I mean, gosh, you saw it last year with how Notre Dame season, we thought that was over, and then suddenly they're back in the field. They make it after losing to NIU, and they're in the title game, right? I think getting to that field is how a lot of people are thinking about it now. Like Dabo said this a few times, and I think it's a pretty astute comparison. Like there aren't a lot of NFL teams that are stressing, if they lose 2 or 3 games on any given year, and again, that might not be what your fan base likes to hear, but it's kind of, I think a lot of teams are kind of framing their season and workload and practice and everything toward this idea of, okay, we've got 12 games. Obviously, you want to win all those if you can, but you want to focus on getting away into this field, knowing that you might play 3 or 4 more games after that and seeing what you can do. But I think, yeah, just like making the playoff is their standard right now, because the last few years have shown that itself is hard. So they're definitely not in, tier 1A right now. If you want to put them in tier 1B or tier 2, I don't know, wherever you want to put them right now, that's kind of where they've been hovering the last few years. So that's kind of what I default to, because I don't really think about them as a year in, year out top 4 team at this point, which again is hard to do.
Chappell, we just talked about it in the last segment on the show here. What kind of condition are backup quarterbacks at some of these schools that seem to be struggling with starting quarterbacks really in right now? So I don't mean it to say Cade needs to be benched and Christopher Vezina has to come in and play, and that will solve all their problems. But from what you've seen and from what you've heard in your press conferences, what kind of condition is Christopher Vezina really in right now? If they had to tap him, if Cade had one of those DJ Lagway against LSU 5 interception kinds of games, do you believe that Christopher Vezina is ready to come in and play the majority of a game?
I think he's ready to do it. I just don't know how good he would be. And I think a lot of that is the fact that we've really just not seen him in those situations. And again, that's kind of the the beauty and the struggle of the backup quarterback position, right? Like, you're so tantalizing at times, but there's been so few instances of you coming in and doing it against the type of teams that you're expected to, that you really don't know. Like, the Troy game was supposed to be a really good opportunity for him to come in and play a good number of series, get a lead, get Cade out of there early, and let the backup come in and really, in a lot of ways that was going to be part of like him stating his case to be the starter in 26. And instead they're down 16-0, and that obviously does not happen. I think he could get it done, but I don't think that he gives them a significantly better chance to win than Cade Klubnik does. I still think it's Klubnik by a pretty wide margin. I know the mistakes have been there. 4 turnovers in 3 games is kind of a regression in a concerning way to what he did as his first year as a starter. But I think for this Clemson team this year, I really don't see how it's anybody but Cade. I think he has all the talent in the world to get it done. The inconsistency has kind of been his flaw over his Clemson career. But I think you saw against Tech, their offense did get grooving on that last touchdown drive to tie things. So that's still in him. But I don't think he's immune from a surprise midseason benching. I think back to DJU, he got benched in 21 for Tyson Pumachan against, I think it was a game at Pittsburgh, and it was like one drive and it wasn't a full game or anything, but that's the type of thing that leadership has to do sometimes. So, I think Dabo's been tough on him publicly, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happens at some point this year. I just don't think he's played poorly enough, consistently enough to warrant that happening.
Chapel Fowler covers Clemson for the state newspaper. Find him on Twitter at Chapel Fowler. I say this kind of facetiously here because it's cruel and unusual. Thanks a lot. Jumper cables, dumping ice water on him. How is Garrett Riley going to wake up Cade Klubnik going into this week? What's the week of prep been like to kind of shock him out of this malaise?
Yeah, I think honestly, it's not just Cade; it's Cade and Garrett Riley. This is a really well compensated and well regarded offensive coordinator who has had some kind of slip ups and strategic slip ups and certain moments of certain play calls that I'm sure he wants back, and that Dabo has really, held him accountable for publicly. Again, I probably heard more, direct, constructive but direct criticism of Cade and Garrett this year than I've heard at any other point in their tenures, and probably as long as I've been covering Clemson dating back to 22. As annoying as it is to hear that the idea that you're only a few plays away, we saw that against Georgia Tech. I think back to that really pretty ball Wesco dropped on the left sideline. At that point, Clemson was, I think they were up at that point, a touchdown, and that was a drive when it really felt like they could get another score against Tech. They were grooving, and maybe that's the difference in the game. But it doesn't happen. Your best receiver all day, who was great for them, gave them a chance to win, drops the ball. And then you've got Cade staring down TJ Moore at the goal line. He throws an interception. He fumbles in his own territory earlier in the game. I think in a lot of ways it is everybody that needs to improve, but it comes back to those 2 key guys. And I don't really know, like at this point, I'm sure their practices, they think they've been good this week. They've said that the last 2 weeks. I really just need to see it on the field. I don't know what it takes to kind of snap out of it. But until I see, 2 or 3 or 4 crisp drives in a row without a killer mistake against Syracuse or whoever it is, I kind of, approach this offense with a skeptical look. And again, that's not what I thought I'd be saying 3 weeks into the season, given who all they had coming back.
Chapel, Dabo brought Tom Allen in to bring that elite Penn State defense to Clemson. And so far, it's been okay, but it hasn't been anywhere close to elite. It's not in the top 50. In fact, it's 74th through 3 games so far. And I know part of that is the fact that Clemson has played 2 power opponents where a lot of the teams that are sitting up there above them have not. They've played a lot of FCSs and G5 punching bags, but still, Clemson is giving up 338 yards per game, which is on par with Michigan State and Stanford's defense. Why, with all the talent, have we seen such a slow start?
Yeah, I think honestly they don't have the depth that I thought they would, or maybe it's not a big surprise, but I think it's a combination of their starters are not playing to their elite potential, and they don't really have the exact depth behind them to keep that going. They started a guy at nickelback, Tink Kelly, who transitioned from wide receiver in his first defensive snap ever at Clemson was against LSU in the opener. And I credit him, he won the job, but Georgia Tech picked on him a little bit on Saturday, and that was a guy that Dabo kind of publicly pushed to play better. On the cornerback, Avion Terrell, Ashton Hampton, here's two really good, solid guys. And then 3 weeks into the season, Dabo saying, yeah, we've been soft on the perimeter, and going through the mistakes that Hampton made against Tech. And then like TJ Parker really hasn't made a splash at much this year. Peter Woods has gotten double teamed a lot, but it's been, okay, good, not great, I think were Dabo's words. Will Help is playing his butt off, I will say. And I think that the fans and everybody watching can realize that him, Sammy Brown are seeming to be playing with like the heat-seeking missile effort that you want. But I think it's a combination of starters not playing up to their starter potential and maybe not having the elite depth behind them. And I keep coming back to this again. Here's a lot of stuff that 3 weeks into this season, I didn't expect I'd be talking about because of who they had coming back and everything we heard. But I think we're kind of getting, a good reality check on who Clemson was last year, which was a good but not great team, and kind of that's who they've been this year. And some of those defensive issues have carried over from coordinator to coordinator. Given
what you've been able to see from practice and conversations that you've had this week, if I told you only one of those units, offense or defense, elevates and plays to its preseason expectation on Saturday against Syracuse, which unit would you say achieved that?
I'd say defense. I think Syracuse has some good offensive numbers. And again, they had a pretty solid showing against Tennessee, but it came after they were down, 17-0 or something in their opener. They've beaten up on an FCS school. They had to come back against UConn. So they have a lot of really gaudy offensive numbers, quarterback leading the country in passing yards and all that stuff. And, they were great last year. So Fran Brown has a heck of a scheme and seems to really get these guys going. But I think that could be a unit that maybe, gets involved with a few more sacks, a few more pressures. Like it's tough to play games in Clemson for some of these like middle tier ACC opponents. Like Syracuse, for example, is 0-5 at Clemson in their series since they joined the ACC. It's the type of game that can sometimes get away from an opponent. And I've seen it happen a good number of times when you're playing at Clemson. I'm sure the crowd will be out in pretty full force for that noon game. Like credit to them. They always seem to show up regardless of record. So I think that's one where it might be close for a while, but maybe a pick six here or a big splash play here gets things turned to the other direction. And Syracuse, again, just given the quality of opponent they've played so far, maybe gets behind the eight ball because of that.
Chapel, we've got a little bit of data on most of the ACC teams against power competition. Who is your favorite now after 3 weeks to win the conference?
Oh, good question. I'm really impressed with Tech, having watched them on Saturday. I think Brent Key is just like an awesome coach. You want to talk about like instilling an identity and creating a culture and recruiting the right guys. Like that guy is really, really impressive. I'm sure his name will get floated around for some bigger job in the offseason, but he seems really committed to Tech. I mean, I guess maybe more schools should hire former offensive linemen as coaches because they seem to be like the toughest as they come. I'm stuck between them and Miami. I might lean Tech just because I've seen Miami kind of blow it on the big stage so many times with so many expectations. But I mean, they've done the opposite of that this year. I thought that Notre Dame win was awesome, and they've kind of taken care of business outside of that. Beck looks great, and they've always had the bodies and the recruiting talent. So, I mean, I'm sure those are probably the top two in betting odds. So that's not the most unique answer, but both those teams for different reasons have impressed me a lot. But I'd probably lean Tech just by a little bit.
And Chapel, before we let you go, I don't know if you've spent a lot of time pontificating on this. I don't think it's going to be Shane Beamer, just because why would you walk away from the resources at South Carolina? Who is kind of your early watch list for head coach at Virginia Tech?
Yeah, I don't see how that's a fit for Beamer either. I would agree with you on that. I don't know. I mean, so their last two hires have been Pry was a Penn State defensive coordinator, I think, and then Fuente came from G5. I don't know if that's a spot where you try like something crazy like a Gruden or someone who's been there before at some level and is looking for a splash. I don't think Michael Vick is really the answer. It's cool that he's getting considered, but I think he just has a long way to go at an FCS school before he gets to that level. And he'd probably say the same thing he kind of has. I don't know. I mean, a guy like the JMU coach or some of these G5 coaches, Golish from South Florida, I'm sure will be in the mix. But I don't know. Just given who they've hired in the past. I think this is their 80s third football hire, which usually doesn't happen. Maybe we see them make a splash play and go after someone like a Gruden, or kind of an off-the-wall candidate to get things turned around over there. I'm interested to see who they get, though, for sure.
Chappell, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you rolling with the punches through that little technical snafu.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys, for having me. It was a pleasure, as always.
Thanks, Chappell. That's Chappell Fowler of the State Newspaper. Again, at Chappell Fowler is where you can find him. He is all over it when it comes to the Clemson beat. You know, he is in every press box, every meeting. He is the guy that you want to go to when it comes to getting that inside knowledge and information on Clemson sports. When we come back, let's really make a push. You Tolos, you were all over it in the first segment. That one, hopefully, it was you were so enthralled with the Chappell Fowler conversation that you just were holding your breath and you hit pause on this. But when we come back, a big push for your upset picks. That's next.
Fan Upstate.
The Upset Picks Challenge is sweeping the Upstate as it does every single week. The lines are lit up and the text line is buzzing. Get yours to us. JC says, give me UNC plus 7.5 over UCF. Kevin Bugs, Z Breeze, Canes Transplant. He's also taking UNC over UCF. Philip Rollins, JB, Mike Main, MC Jack Attack, Hurricane Jeff. We got you all so far for today. We'll get into that a little bit more here in just a second. Let's go to the phone lines and bring on Jason in Columbia, who's got a little something to say about what Chapel Fowler had to say. Jason, what's up?
What's up, Diesel? Yeah, you know what, man? I'm at a point now where, dude, I'm just like, obviously I'm shook after the start to the Clemson season. I mean, I can't believe what I'm watching. And
Yeah.
I'm at the point where, dude, I'm like, Cade, I've got a really short hook for him in the first half tomorrow or Saturday. I mean, if he comes out and it looks like he has the yips and you're a 17-point favorite against the Syracuse team that has a terrible defense and he's out there looking like he's got the yips again, I mean, I'm throwing Vizina in because at this point, man, and it's a multitude of things, like he said. I mean, it's Westco dropping the ball at midfield. The offensive line has been injured and not played well. But Cade is the one dude on the team that touches the ball every snap. And he's the guy that, I mean, you've seen all the clips on Twitter and whatnot. I mean, he's missing open dudes. And you know, I know it's a multitude of factors, but I believe Cade is the biggest factor right now. And so I want to see some fresh blood out there if Cade's struggling, man. I'd have a really short hook and just see what Vizina can do, man. I mean, do you think that's reasonable at this point?
Well, I know that he's missing Antonio Williams, but still, with a guy that's a senior starter like this, he ought to be hitting basically any wide receiver who knows the playbook in the hands. There's really no reason for some of the bad throws, but he's scrambling out of the pocket far more than he should be. I get the sense, Jason, that he doesn't trust his offensive line. Right? I get the sense that he thinks that the pocket is collapsing on him so much faster than it actually is.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, at this point in his career, he's a fourth-year guy. I mean, we've seen him play well. He should be like a Jedi master in this offense. He should want people to blitz him. You know, that third down and fourth down sequence at the end of the LSU game, you just can't have it. I mean, Tyler Brown's sitting there wide open on third down. He walks into the end zone, and Cade throws to the guy that has someone blanketing him for some reason. You know, you just can't have it from a senior quarterback. And I will say this, you bring up Antonio Williams, you know, the segment that you and Cole did earlier in the week where you were forecasting the rest of the season for Clemson and Carolina, the one bit of hopium, if you're a Clemson fan, and like I said, I'm shook, but if your hope against hope is that maybe you get back some of these dudes like Antonio Williams, Khalil Barnes, the two offensive linemen, Lee and Thurman, that missed the last couple of games, and maybe you will eventually see a full complement of the Clemson roster because obviously Antonio Williams, I mean, you're right. It shouldn't make that much of a difference, but he is wide receiver one. So maybe getting him back into the mix will pay dividends for Cade and just the rest of the team in general. Losing Khalil Barnes in the second half or the first half of that LSU game, that was a killer. I knew we were in trouble because Nussmeier got in a groove in the second half there, even though he didn't put up big points.
And, you know, Jason, I'm sure it certainly hurts to not trust your run game, right? I mean, I know that, these guys have been around. I know that Adam Randall is not a new guy on this roster, not a new he's a new running back, but he's not a new player around Cade. Maybe it's just that he doesn't trust him. So he thinks, man, it's just all on me and I've got to go play hero ball. And, you know, that leads to other things breaking down. But, you know, as you said there about guys injured coming in and out of the roster, that happens everywhere. And you're right. He's a fourth year guy. He should be a Jedi at this by now. Appreciate the call, Jason. Call back anytime.
Yeah, and I want to say Crazy Ralph. It was awesome to hear him call back into the show. He's my spiritual brother just on the other side of the rivalry, but we love Ralph.
I love it. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, Crazy Ralph, you know, he doesn't call in when things are going well for South Carolina. He only ever calls in. He's sort of like one of those I told you so warriors, but I love it. You know, he's one of the most entertaining callers we have. No offense to Dewey. Of course, Dewey's great. No offense to Tom in Somerville and all the other callers that we have. We love you all. We want you to call more often. Would you? Great phone call there. So keep them coming. But here we go. Need your upset picks here for week number 4. Looking down the list, you got a lot of people picking UNC over UCF. Part of that, and I don't remember which toll it was yesterday that told us that maybe UCF has a little bit of a heavy heart after what's going on with their offensive line coach and Sean Clark. And obviously that one's close to me as well, because he's a Mountaineer through and through, and he played his college ball at App State, and he coached there at App State and took us to a road win on the road at Texas A&M. And you love the guy. Ultimately, it didn't work out for him, and he wasn't able to sustain what Eli Drinkwitz sustained from the previous regime before him. But, hoping the best obviously for Sean Clark. Some people are picking Texas Tech over Utah. Got a lot of people going big, and this is a mistake. I think Christy Mann, this is a mistake. She's going Purdue plus 24.5 over Notre Dame. That is a huge, huge reach. I mean, were we really thinking Notre Dame starts 0-3 with a loss to Purdue? I don't think so. Got a bunch of Patolos taking South Carolina over Missouri, maybe a little bit of a homer pick, but hey, you do you. Pick your game for the reasons that you pick your game. Just taking Rutgers over Iowa. I am going with East Carolina plus 6.5 hosting BYU. And I like this game because East Carolina has a seasoned quarterback. He's a senior. BYU has a freshman quarterback, and this just so happens to be his first road start. First road start in this freshman. And I've been in Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium before. When it's packed, it's not the biggest stadium in the world. It's 45, 50,000-ish. It's shaped just right to trap all that sound in, and that is going to be a fun environment. When we come back, let's get into another type of conversation. And Tolos, this is where I need your participation. Answer the question or fill in the blank. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. South Carolina needs blank. And I'm talking about the football program, the state of South Carolina, all of it. South Carolina needs blank. 844-FAN-PHONE. Light up the phones now. seeing a lot of messages coming in, and yes, I have every intention to address it as part of the Daily Wires coming up at 4:45. If you haven't heard, Connor Shaw, ex-South Carolina quarterback, collapsed while coaching his son's 8 and under football team earlier yesterday. He is, from what we're hearing at this point, in stable condition. And this all happened yesterday, last night. He is in stable condition. I haven't found any more specific details about it since then, other than the fact that he was taken to Greenville Memorial Hospital and that he was coaching his kids' game and that CPR had to be administered on site. Outside of that, I don't like to speculate and guess and put any potential false information out there because I genuinely don't have anything more than that. However, if somebody does have something more than that, send us a link. Send me a link, diesel@thefanupstate.com on email, and be happy to take a look at it and maybe be able to provide some more information in the Daily Wires, which, sometimes I like to switch it up. I'll do the Daily Wires at 4:45 today. Brandon in Spartanburg's taking Maryland plus 9.5 over Wisconsin. Buckeye Brian taking Oregon. Oh my God, dude. I don't think this is going to happen, Buckeye Brian, but hey, I appreciate your enthusiasm. Oregon State plus 34.5 over Oregon. Jersey Joe's taking Illinois plus 6.5 over Indiana. Good choice. That's Bill Bender's pick. And by the way, we had Bill Bender on yesterday from the Sporting News. He's awesome. And he's a national level guest. And didn't get a chance to play it back for you yesterday because we had another interview earlier in the show, but we are going to play that back for you coming up in the very next segment of the show. You know what else is happening? At the end of this segment, you're going to have a chance to call in at 844-FAN-PHONE and win 2 tickets to see Trans-Siberian Orchestra December 12th, the 4 p.m. showing right here in Greenville at Bon Secours Wellness Arena. So at the end of this segment, I will give you the cue to call. You will call, be caller number 5, and you could score those tickets. That's a pretty sweet prize. Every single day this week, our phone lines have literally lit up like a Christmas tree because we have it set for all different kinds of colors. Whenever you call in, our screen starts just going off. We got a light over here blinking green, and we got lines over here blinking red, and it's like a Christmas tree, which is, apropos considering Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and what they do is as a heavy metal Christmas show. So listen up at the end of the segment. Here in about 10 minutes, we'll give you a chance to win those tickets. But I want you to help me out here. Tolos of South Carolina. What does South Carolina need? Big picture. South Carolina, the state of the football program of whatever it may be. What does South Carolina need? Dewey says South Carolina should start selling beer. He said sailing beer. Sailing? He says sailing. Just reading it exactly the way Dewey wrote it. Do they not sell beer at Williams-Brice Stadium? I haven't been as a fan to a South Carolina game in a couple of years. So help me out. Do they not sell beer in the stadium at South Carolina? That shocks me if that's not the case. What does South Carolina need? I got some things for you, and I don't give a rip. The texter gets to me. Perk gets in and says they sell beer and wine. What are you talking about, Dewey? What are you talking about? They should start selling. They do sell all over the place. I don't know what you're talking about. But then again, it's Dewey. I don't know if he knows what he's talking about. So I don't give a rip. Every time I bring this up, this is something I bring up all the time. And one of these days, this is a dark thing to say. One of these days, one of y'all is going to get T-boned while crossing an intersection. And you're going to say, Diesel, it was a good idea. Why don't we have red light cameras? Because people blow through stoplights everywhere. Am I wrong here to say that it's getting worse and worse and worse? Because people know there's no consequences for blowing through a red light. So they got no reason not to blow through a red light. They do that thing where you see it off in the distance and it's yellow. And you punch it. Like, I got to get through this light. And it used to be you would go in, you'd have some caution. And you'd say, oh man, this thing could be turning red anytime soon. I better slow down. I better stop. I better not do that. That's not what they do anymore. They say Paul Walker and they go for it. That's it's terrible. Paul Walker. That's what I say when I run a red light. I don't run the red lights. I don't do it. Mostly because my Jeep's not fast enough to get through a red light. If I really need to, I'm not going to make it. I better slow down. But it's going to happen. Somebody's going to get hit by a car blowing through a red light. I think we need them. Let's see. T-Swizzle. Spartanburg got a bunch of cameras on their lights. T-Swizzle. I think what you're talking about are those traffic pattern studying cameras. Like, we got them. We're here on the corner of Garlington Road and Woodruff Road. And on the corner light posts, there's these big gray cameras that arch up, and then they come back down, and you see the black bulb of the camera cover. That's not a red light camera. They are not ticketing people for blowing through red lights, even though, oh my God, I wish they would. I wish they'd ticket people for blowing through the lights. I wish they'd ticket people for sitting out in the intersection when the light is already turned red. You know you're not going to make it through that light. So what are you pulling out into it for anyway? There's big old signs everywhere that say, do not block intersection. But people do it anyway. And then nobody can go anywhere. Dewey says $400 fine for blowing through a red light. I'm fine with that, Dewey. You got to have consequences for this. Got to tell people it's not okay. Can't do it. So red light cameras, I know they're like unconstitutional or whatever. Who cares? Who cares? I'd rather change that law and get ticketed if I blow through a red light than sit there and say, well, you can't do it because the law says you can't do it. It's not a bad idea. If we're talking South Carolina football, again, 844-326-3663. Fill in the blanks. South Carolina needs. Texter says better roads. I agree. I don't know what those fat cats down in Columbia are doing with all of our gas taxes, the road improvement taxes, but they're sure as hell not using them on roads. If they're doing it, they're not doing it here. I don't know. We need a law. Here's one thing. We do need a law that anytime somebody develops a new housing development, new condos, new apartments, whatever it is, they should have to repave, regardless of what condition it's in. They should have to repave the road for a quarter mile in either direction of every entrance of that community. You're not going to build a brand new housing development right next to mine and say, oh, we're just going to leave that pothole right where it is. We're not going to touch that thing. Nah, man, you should have to repave the road. And I think that's starting to become a thing. I think there's more and more of that. It's starting to be regulated into what you have to do if you want to develop a piece of property. South Carolina needs luck. That's a texter. Oh, South Carolina needs to block some damn body. Good texter. Michael in Simpsonville says he's taking Maryland plus 6.5 over Wisconsin in the upset picks challenge. Keep them coming. Texter says South Carolina needs its own professional team. Baseball, football, NBA, soccer, tiddlywinks. I mean, something. And I'm glad you said that. Texter, whoever you are, because you didn't sign your text. I'm not sure who you are. I've been advocating for it forever. Time to get a highest level professional team. I love the Spartanburgers, and congratulations to them for making it all the way to the championship series. You ran up against Brooklyn, and those Brooklyn Cyclones, they've been really good this year. You ran up against a better team in a best of 3 series. In a best of 5, you might have got a game. You might have got 2, but I don't think the Spartanburgers were winning that series regardless. But either way, first year of a new affiliate franchise, phenomenal job. I love going to drive games. I mean, I've been in Greenville now for 20 years, and I can't tell you how many people, parents, friends, family, etc., come to Greenville before Fifth Third Park was built. I would take them around downtown and I would show them Fluor Field because it's a beautiful place. And, my brother-in-law, he's from Worcester, Mass. He's a Red Sox fan. He's been down like 5 times to see games because they got the Green Monster. He loves it. I love the Swamp Rabbits. I love the Triumph and the Liberty, but it's time now. It's time to get a team at the highest level. And the problem is Charlotte and Atlanta already have most of the major sports in them. Charlotte's obviously got the Panthers, Falcons are in Atlanta. You got the Hornets and the Hawks. You got the Braves in Atlanta. You got Charlotte kind of always talked about as that next up-and-coming city that could get a major league franchise, maybe turning the Knights into a major league team. I don't know if they have the room. They'd probably have to buy up a lot of property around that stadium, or they'd have to build a whole brand new stadium somewhere else. But I do love Charlotte Knights Stadium. The only answer, and again, it can't be MLS because they got MLS in Charlotte and Atlanta. The only possible answer is NHL. And every time I bring that up, people are, it wouldn't work here. Wouldn't work here. Why not? Are you saying that you wouldn't support it? You wouldn't go. Greenville gets an NHL team, and I'm not going. No, I don't want to have anything to do with it. What if it had a super cool mascot? I brought this up for years too. The South Carolina Reapers. What's South Carolina known for? Producing the world's most butthole scorching pepper ever. The Carolina Reaper. Why don't we name our NHL team the Reapers? Because that's badass. That's how you get people into it. Then again, we are in the Bible Belt, and maybe people will be like, oh, I wouldn't support something like the Reapers. Whatever. I think it needs to happen. But there's not a whole lot of will for it. I think it's like Nashville, where the skeptics would come around and love it once we finally got it. But I don't think there's a political will here in the upstate to get it. Mad Mex says legalize gambling in this state. South Carolina needs to legalize gambling in this state. You mean like casinos gambling, or you mean sports gambling? Because those are two different things. Sports gambling, you can bet on player props, can't bet on outcomes. Texter says South Carolina needs a 1 dwelling per acre law, just like they put in place for Paris Mountain. It's amazing how the rich folks get their way, isn't it, Texter? It's amazing how they got exactly what they wanted. They were talking about putting a hotel up there or an apartment complex or something up there in the most beautiful spot in Greenville, looking out over the town. And those rich folks got their way. Dewey says South Carolina needs more prisons. Dewey, you're either going to be a warden or you're going to be a prisoner. I don't know which. But I do feel like a jail cell is in your future. 844-326-3663, the last one before we run off. I think the upstate needs some loops. Needs some loops. You know what I mean? Like, you go to Charlotte, you got the multiple loops around the city. Greenville already has half of one built. You got 385 and you got 185. Look at them on a map. It's right there. It's like a crescent moon cradling the city of Greenville. You have that, and then you have a bigger loop that goes around it. How about we do a figure 8 around Greenville and Spartanburg? The way Greenville has a loop, Spartanburg has a loop. And if you don't want to get on 85, all that crap that 85 is, you don't have to. Wouldn't it be great to be on like the south side of Greenville, like the Malden, Simpsonville area, and not have to get on 85 to go to Spartanburg? Just take the loop. Texter says South Carolina needs officers that are in shape. Oh, cops, are you gonna take that from this texter? And teachers who care. Texter says we need some White Castle burgers in Greenville. That comes from Kevin. Never been to, have I? No, I've never been to a White Castle. I've been to a Crystal, but I've never been to a White Castle. Is it that much better? Is it really that much better? John, have you ever had? I've had White Castle. It helps if your mic's on.
I've had White Castle. It's an up north thing.
Is it that much better?
I mean, it's
like
just
Crystal burgers.
Crystal's kind of like the Huddle House of Waffle House. So,
wow, that might be the most insulting thing you've ever said.
It's just like everyone knows White Castle, and Crystal is like they have their own identity, but it's just they're not White Castle.
Well, they're not White Castle. As Tony Kornheiser said, you can't lose to Georgia Southern because they're not App State. That was for you, Corn Chip. JB says, now, Diesel, you know, if they get an NHL team, they'll screw up the mascot. Look at what they named a mascot for the baseball team. The Drive. How lame is that? T Swizzle says, Waffle House ain't got nothing on Mr. Waffle. I don't think I've ever been to a Mr. Waffle. I know there's that one along I-85, but it's long since closed, right? And it's up north of Spartanburg in the Gaffney area. I've driven past it a bunch. T Swizzle says you can still smoke in there. Oh God. Okay. Gold Rush is taking Memphis plus 7.5 over Arkansas. How about that? Tolo's going to try to make you a little bit smarter in the very next segment of the show. Again, we had Bill Bender of the Sporting News on yesterday. Going to play that back for you if you missed it. Also, Tolo's right now. There's so much going on right now. 844-326-3663. If you want to score 2 tickets to see the Ghost of Christmas Eve Trans-Siberian Orchestra show coming to Greenville Friday, December 12th, be caller number 5, 844-326-3663. Well, from coaches on the hot seat to coaches who are ready to jump out of their seats, we talk to Bill Bender of the Sporting News. Bill, let's start right there with the big old monkey in the room, Dabo Swinney. Is he gaslighting us or playing chicken with us after he said 8 conference championships in 10 years? Is that not good? And he also said, I'm not done. I'll go coach somewhere else. Your reaction to that audio from earlier this week?
Overreactions everywhere, probably from Dabo, probably from us, probably from, they lost to 2 good teams. They lost to 2 good teams that'll probably be in the playoff at this rate, the way Georgia Tech is playing. Unnecessary in some ways. I think Dabo's an outstanding coach, and I like to remind people that, I don't know if I've said it on your show, I think what he's done at Clemson is the best story in college football in the last 50 years, because you don't build national championship superstores at places like that. You might have had a dream season like they did in the 80s, obviously, and been solid, but he built them into we're going to go beat Bama type place. And I don't know if they've been that the last couple seasons, and maybe that's the root of what we're getting at.
I think it's fair, Bill. And for the record, we talk about it a lot, obviously, being in Clemson's backyard. I have been on record criticizing Dabo, but I also don't believe that Dabo Swinney should be fired because of a 1-2 start and because of ups and downs. I think the biggest gripe, though, that you've seen, that we see on Twitter, on Clemson Twitter in the past couple of days, is just the Dabo Swinney rants that seem like a little bit of complacency, that maybe Dabo doesn't have the same fire. Maybe Dabo doesn't want to adapt. I know he's gotten a couple of guys out of the portal. I think, and tell me your thoughts on this and where maybe my thoughts might be wrong, is that a lot of Clemson fans, while they appreciate what Dabo's done, they are very quick to remind Dabo that you're the same guy that built this standard as high as it is.
Fair. But I think some of it just really comes down to 2 positions for me. Maybe spoiled from the standpoint you go from Taj Boyd to Deshaun Watson to Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
And how many schools go from school record guy to 2 first-round picks and a number 1 pick at that? I make comparison up here in Columbus at Ohio State, where they went from Dwayne Haskins, who they chose over Joe Burrow, and it was the right choice, to Fields, to Stroud, to McCord, to Howard. They've got a line of quarterbacks there, and sometimes you don't always hit. And then the receiver position, where's T. Higgins? That type guy. Wesco's got that kind of talent. I think he's got that kind of future in mind, but it's early for him compared to where they were when they had like T and Sammy Watkins and some of those guys that were, T should have been a first-round pick.
Well, Bill, to that, I would say Alabama has done that. Ohio State has done that. Other programs have. It's an incredibly difficult thing to do. And even in the case of Alabama, you could say they were winning national titles with people who fans were calling game managers, guys who weren't even supposed to be that good, and they were winning titles with them. And I know that's the Nick Saban effect, that you can pack so much talent around a game managing quarterback. You could go out there and win national titles. At this point, Bill, what kind of performance by Clemson this weekend against Syracuse would surprise you, good or bad?
Losing. I don't think they'll lose. I think they're the better team. And, I think they'll bounce back and work themselves into this conversation of, there's the other one that, like I said, if they didn't play LSU and played just an also ran group of 5 school, they'd still be 2-1. And I think the freak out factor would be less, knowing that they lost on a 55-yard field goal, or the kid just made an awesome, Aiden Berman, awesome kick. But yeah, that would surprise me a lot. Anything over like a field goal, I think they'll come out and play, and they've been challenged a little bit, and Dabo's tried to challenge that. Some of it, we talked about it last week, is trying to manage these preseason expectations. But I'll tell you, whether it's a team, and there's about 5 or 6 quarterbacks that I had in my top 10 that aren't performing like top 10 quarterback. So either I was really wrong or some of these guys need to play a little better. It's probably I was wrong. I'll never pin it on a college kid.
Bill, you've seen a lot of football. And my last Clemson question for you for now, unless I think of another one. Cade Klubnik, Garrett Riley. A lot of conversation about those two, third year together. And that match just hasn't been the dating app match made in heaven that a lot of people thought it would be in year 3. In your mind, is it more on Cade Klubnik? Is it more on Garrett Riley? What have you seen that's actual proof of maybe as to why this team has gotten off to a rough start?
Probably both, because the passing game's inefficient. And there's one stat I look at on Pro Football Focus more than anything else. And, it's not perfect. I get it's more than just numbers, but take Dylan Raiola at Nebraska, for example. Right now, on throws between 10 and 19 yards, he's 75%. Now, granted, they haven't played tough competition, but 75%, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Super efficient in that range where you've got to be super efficient. And that's something that I don't know that Clemson's passing game's real efficient right now. And the running game's hit or miss. And, listening to the game I listened to a little bit on the radio. That drive where they scored at the end of the half, it just took a lot of work to get to the end zone. You know what I mean? Like, it used to be easy for Clemson. ETN run or, long pass and they're in. But Georgia Tech really made them work and be patient. And when you do that, your quarterback has to play more efficient.
At Bill Bender 92 on Twitter is where you can go find him. We invite all of our Tolos to go and give Bill a follow. Virginia Tech and UCLA firing both of their coaches triggers a 30-day transfer window. Some people are looking at it like it could be a doomsday scenario where half the roster exits mid-season. But it seems, Bill, like there's a lot of checks and balances on this. Obviously, the academic side of transferring mid-semester, with having to go somewhere that actually has a roster spot available now. Can you kind of go into sort of the facts of what really happens in this 30-day transfer window?
I mean, guys can transfer, but I don't see it happening a lot. Maybe you preserve a year at this point because they've only played 3 games. I was a little shocked. Not at the firings themselves. I mean, UCLA, you kind of saw coming after they lost to New Mexico. But I'm going to tell you something random. New Mexico plays really hard under Jason Eck. Even against Michigan, they were playing hard. And I know that's cliche. I know exactly how it sounds. But it's something you just watch on TV and you're like, man, they're playing Michigan and they're playing, all out right now. So I didn't expect them to fire a guy that played there. And then Brent Pride, maybe that one was coming. But, it's all about fit. And we talk about all that all the time in college football. Fit matters over everything. And, that goes kind of, not to bring everything back to the last conversation, but Dabo fits at Clemson. Dabo's not going up to UCLA and coach because fit matters all the time.
So to that point, who are the right guys in your mind for programs like Virginia Tech and UCLA?
Probably Danton Lynn. If not Danton Lynn, maybe a guy like Tosh Lapoy, a couple defensive coordinators on the West Coast. I mean, the obvious guy for Virginia Tech in your backyard. I mean, if they wanted to go after Shane Beamer, but then that becomes the question of, other than being for Frank Beamer, Virginia Tech a better job right now, South Carolina, and I think the answer is no.
Yeah.
I think South Carolina and the SEC, with the success they've shown over the last, couple years, they're a factor. They were 9-3 last year. I think that answer is no.
It's interesting, Bill. We'll have that conversation a lot more, I'm sure, when the season's over. When you look at this weekend, some big matchups, thus far, obviously, in the past couple of weeks that we've seen. But we had this hot seat conversation in the last segment. When you look at this weekend's matchups in your mind, who do you think has the most pressure on them as a head coach, since we're having that head coach conversation?
Well, it's like those hidden games. So like if Wisconsin were to lose to Maryland, I wonder if that gets hot for Coach Fickle. I didn't expect them to beat Alabama. But, I mean, if you keep losing games, that's one I don't know that they can lose. And, Coach Fickle, I really like Luke. He's a great guy, great dude. Just a couple of years ago, the Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year when he was at Cincinnati. So that's one to watch. And obviously Billy Napier, that's such an easy I could probably repeat what I said on here a couple weeks ago, but I mean, they're playing Miami. The schedule's brutal. I did think they compete. Again, they were playing hard against LSU. They just didn't execute and had several turnovers. So how hard are they going in another tough road environment against Miami? It's not going to be easy.
Bill, Cole and I earlier this week absolutely raved about this new review process in ACC broadcasts where we can hear the head official talking to the network replay booth. What have you thought about that? And do you think that's something that might be coming to other conferences as well?
Well, I mean, I like it for us. I don't know if I like it for them. That would amp the pressure. You got to get that thing right because then it's just meme material when you're wrong. So I think that's something to keep in mind. But certainly anything that gives us more access and things that we can react to on the game and the thought process that goes into some of those calls, I think it's a good thing for the sport.
Bill, you mentioned it, and we spent a lot of time talking about it a minute ago with Billy Napier. This is a brutal stretch coming up for Billy Napier at Florida in the next, rest of the season. We all know the conference they're in and how tough it is week in and week out. Where does Florida make the right move in your mind? Is it keeping Billy Napier? Is it moving on? What's the right move in the mind of Bill Bender?
Let it play out. Right? Like, let it play out because, he did this last year in November. They battled. We didn't think they were going to win a game in November last year. Now, most people, when you listen to talk radio down there and analysts and those kind of things, it sounds like his days are numbered. But again, who are you going to get? Are they going to go take a run at Dan Lanning? Everybody seems to think Dan Lanning's the answer to their prayers, but I just don't know that he's leaving Oregon. Why would he? I mean, Oregon has the third best record in college football since he got there behind Ohio State and Georgia. And they're in the Big Ten. So I don't know if there's a reason for him to leave. And then you could start rumors with any number of guys, like ranging from Lane Kiffin to John Summerall. And I don't know that any of those guys are the answer either. Florida has press reset quite a bit since Urban Meyer left, and it just hasn't worked out.
Bill Bender, the Sporting News with Vanderbilt. Bill, you got Clark Lee, Diego Pavia, an amazing defensive line so far through their couple of games. What's the ceiling for this Vanderbilt team this year?
Well, I think, America's going to adopt them if they keep winning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They'll be like Indiana, but I think even more because of Diego Pavia. And you saw the things with Theo Vaughn last week, and he's obviously pretty mainstream. And, because of their history as kind of the doormat of the SEC, people will jump on that bandwagon, especially if they're undefeated and wherever they're ranked when they play Alabama here in a few weeks. So here's what I'm looking for out of Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech this week. These are two schools that obviously had a huge weekend. They're both 20-plus point favorites against Temple and Georgia State, respectively. Do they just go out and take care of business? Because sometimes when they always call it reading your press clippings. When you do that, that's when those upsets happen. And by the way, Georgia State beat Vandy last year. So there should be plenty of motivation for them.
Bill, who do you trust more to turn it around? In the mind of Bill Bender, I'm going to give you Cade Klubnik and I'm going to give you Arch Manning. Not talking about team success, but just personal success. Who do you trust more to turn it around?
Well, I think both will. I'm going to answer it this way. I think in the short term, probably Cade because he's played more football. But, for Arch, it's that accuracy thing. You've played a lot of football. And Cade has played a lot of football. Arch obviously hasn't played a ton as a starter, and it shows. And, I was just talking about that intermediate range. Like, Arch isn't hitting in that range at all. He's like 7 of 21, I think, on throws like that. It's not good enough. So that has been a little bit of a surprise that they weren't able to go out and just stomp UTEP. So that will be a big reaction this weekend. I think, honestly, it's not even about it's like Arch Manning has to play well against Sam Houston because they got to play Florida in a couple weeks. And that's where these narratives will converge. We'll have Billy Napier on one side and Arch Manning on the other. Man, the hot takes coming from that will be wild.
Bill Bender 92 on Twitter is where you can find him. Bill, I don't know if you're a fan of numerology, but you are sitting in 92nd place. Bill Bender 92 sitting in 92nd place in our upset picks challenge with 2.5 points. Now, I don't want to put any pressure on you or sway your decision, but our leader has 42.5 points right now, Bill. So you got some catching up to do if you want to win this challenge over the course of the season. But who you liking? Who you taking this week in the Upset Picks Challenge?
Who did they hit for 42 points?
His name is Dave Mosley. He has hit 4 weeks in a row. Every week he has hit in this challenge because we played week 0 also.
Yeah.
I think each week it's 40 minutes. Geez. I'm going to take Illinois, the small one, right? It's like 4.5.
I think so. 4.5, 5.5, I think.
I'll take, give me that 4.5. I'll take Bielema and Indiana. I think they're the better team. And that is going to be a fun game, which, college football in 2025. Who knew Illinois and Indiana, what we'd be talking about?
That's right. Bill, you're the best, man. As always, we appreciate the heck out of you. We'll talk to you again next week.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Bill. That's Bill Bender of The Sporting News, Bill Bender 92 on Twitter. When we come back, let's take our whip around the sports world, see what else is going on in our daily wires.
Diesel on the Fan Upstate.
Shane Barrett on the stream says, Cole looks different today. He does. It's because it's not Cole. It's John. Say hello to John, everybody. John is here. Whenever Cole and I are on location in Ingalls,
I'm usually
John is here in the studio. Yeah. Whenever Burns football is happening, John is here in the studio.
I'm behind the scenes until
whenever Furman football is on, John is here in the studio. So John is probably here in this room more than he's in his own home. I guarantee you that. That's just the way that it goes. So much going on in the sports world. Let's get to all of it right now in what we call our daily wires. The buzz. He's got it. He's quick. He learns fast. The buzz happening around the sports world. Former South Carolina Gamecock quarterback Connor Shaw was rushed to the hospital after collapsing during his son's football game yesterday. Reports are now that he is in stable condition, though those reports are a couple of hours old. I haven't seen any more updates about it since then. He was coaching his son's 8-and-under flag football game in Simpsonville when he collapsed. He was taken to Greenville Memorial Hospital. CPR had to be performed on scene, but again, in stable condition. So we're all praying and wishing the best for Connor, his family, and everybody there involved. Thursday night football is tonight. Dolphins at the Bills, 8:15 kickoff. Probably not going to be much of a football game. You get to see Josh Allen show out. That's good. But if you're a Dolphins fan, probably going to be a tough night for you. The Braves beat the Nationals yesterday 9-4. They are 70-83 on the season. The Braves are off today and will return to action tomorrow at 6:40 against the Tigers. Bryce Elder going to start for Atlanta, and this is fun. He's starting against former Atlanta Brave Charlie Morton for the Tigers side of things. Former Carolina Panther great Steve Smith says that after he appeared on Charlotte's Kyle Bailey show and criticized Panthers fans for, quote, doing what this city does well, bitching and complaining, also calling them fair weather fans, that he has received social media death threats for his comments. We're going to be doing an audio blitz coming up at the 6 o'clock segment, and I'll play audio, both of what he said on the Kyle Bailey show and his Instagram response after that. But come on, man, there is no room whatsoever for that. I mean, if we're going to silence anybody for anything on social media, it ought to be death threats, because people feel way too comfortable in 2025 doing that. College football is officially moving to a single offseason transfer portal window. The Division I Administrative Committee voted to eliminate the spring transfer window, which last year was in late April, but hasn't yet signed off on establishing a specific date range. They're looking at possibly January 2nd through the 11th as the lone portal window, which would be the day after the completion of the college football playoff quarterfinals. Players would have 10 days to enter the portal, but would be under no deadline to make a commitment to their next school once they enter. The Commanders return to the old site of the RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C. is officially happening. The District of Columbia Council voted in favor of the measure to approve the new RFK Stadium project, allowing the team to return to the site it called home for more than 3 decades. The project will cost roughly $3.7 billion. Dodgers manager Dave Roberts said yesterday that Shohei Ohtani helping out of the bullpen in a wild card series is a possibility. Yeah, you got to play all your best players, right? You don't want one of your best pitchers sitting in the bullpen not throwing. Obviously, he would be on the field, playing in the field, but you get what I'm saying. In case you missed it, Lenore Sellers was listed as questionable for Saturday's game at Missouri after he was removed from the Vanderbilt game with an apparent concussion. Sources have said that Colorado will return to their Game 1 starter, Caden Salter, the transfer from Liberty, for its upcoming game against Wyoming. Some Tolos have been taking that one in the Upset Picks Challenge. Arizona State and Kansas are reportedly set to play a college football game at Wembley Stadium in London next year for the 2026 season, marking the second college football game ever played in Great Britain. The Jayhawks have never played a game outside the United States, while the Arizona State Sun Devils, lost a game in Tokyo in 1990. I got to tell you, I hate this. I hate it. You got administrators and conferences chasing money, sending games that rightfully ought to be played on campus overseas. We just stopped doing as many stupid neutral site games. Quit shipping them overseas, okay? It screws the fans who only get 6 opportunities a year to see their team play in their own stadium. Saturday marks 5-star recruit Jackson Arnold's return to Norman, Oklahoma after he lost his starting job there. This time, he'll be leading the 3-0 Auburn Tigers against his old team. Jim Irsay, the former owner of the Colts Indiana Mansion, the one that features a pool, a playground, a putting green, and a tennis court, has just sold nearly 4 months after the owner's death. TMZ reports that it sold for $11.75 million. Don't forget, Tolos, this is your time, your opportunity right now to send in your upset picks. I need your name, your game, and the spread. So, Tolos who are texting in, for example, Bo from Greer, he knows what's up. He says, Bo from Greer, Tulane plus 13.5 over Ole Miss. Bold choice, Bo from Greer. I like it. Ole Miss hasn't looked amazing this year, so that's maybe not the worst possible pick to make. You got to reach, though. I mean, again, we have Tolo with 42.5 points. I texted Bill Bender last night after the show with the graphic that you can find on our Facebook and our Twitter pages at the Fan Upstate. And he said, I literally choked on my words when you said 42.5 points. I said, I know, it's ludicrous. 85 points won this challenge last year. And now four picks in 3 weeks, but 4 picks because there was a week 0. 4 picks in, we already have a Tolo who is sitting at nearly half of the total number of points that won this challenge last year. But I think that Dave Mosley is in for a cold streak. I think it's going to happen. I think he's going to not get another one for the rest of the season. I really need that. I shouldn't say that, but dang it, I want to win this challenge too. And I'm so far back. It's not even funny. When we come back, Tolos, this is another chance for you to get out your phones and call and take over the airwaves. 844-326-3663. Tolo Takeover in the past has been an amazing segment of all you weirdos calling in to say what you got to say. So let's make it great again. Call in, be ready, whether you want to complain about something, whether you want to gas something up, whatever it is you want to do with that segment, it is yours. The Tolo Takeover next on the Fan Upstate.
Upstate.
You know, this segment has become the segment where Dewey and Tom in Somerville and Dan B call in, and they have a lot to say, and we love having all of them call in. But it's time, Tolos. It's time for you. If you've never called this show before, and we know because the research shows us that about 1 to 5% of listeners actually call into the show, text into the show, interact in some tangible way. And we want to up those numbers just a little bit, okay? Tolos, if you've never called the station before, if you've got something to say, literally about anything, because this is your opportunity. This is the Tolo takeover, whether you want to talk about South Carolina or Clemson and Cade struggling. If you want to talk about what's going on with the transfer portal window changing, whatever it may be, get out your phones and call us, 844-326-3663. We have 8 phone lines for a reason, so we can accommodate the rush of people who call in. I know you're listening, because you call in whenever we give away Trans-Siberian Orchestra tickets. All right? If you'll call for free stuff, call in to have a conversation. Let's go to the phone lines and bring in Dewey, who's calling from, I don't know where. Dewey, where do you actually call the show from? Can you tell me?
I think I'm in Greer. I'm Dewey in Greer.
You think? You think you're in Greer?
I think.
Oh, okay. What's up, Dewey? What's on your mind?
Anyways, I'm upset that Cole took the day off. That's a travesty.
Well, so you know what, Dewey, sometimes you get a sore tummy too.
Well, he needs to man up and come to work. And there's a trash can next to his desk. And I'm sure he can run to the bathroom, just throw on an interview, go run to the bathroom real quick. He'll be okay. And if he all got toilet paper, that's even better.
Oh, okay.
It's a travesty.
Anyway. I didn't realize that you cared for Cole that much, Dewey.
Well, I don't, but he needs to come to work. But at least you came to work, or we'd be listening to Mark Ryan or somebody right now.
Well, whatever's going on with him is not contagious, and I can confirm that.
Well, I hope not. Then we're all going to get sick. But anyways, yeah. So he needs to come to work anyways. He can do the show outside in the hallway. Or from his bedroom or something.
Well, I mean,
but anyways,
10 cans. There's ways to do it.
Yes. Anyways, I got a complaint, and I was at a restaurant the other day, and I'm not going to name the restaurant because that would be bad. And anyways, I ordered a hamburger and french fries, and the waiter and the mayonnaise and mustard and all that stuff. Well, anyways, I get into my cheeseburger. It was a cheeseburger. It was cold.
Oh.
So I asked him, hey, take this back. And he said, okay. Then my fries were cold. Okay. Well, then I ordered something else, an appetizer too. That was cold. So my meal just sucked all together.
Oh.
Finally brought back the real meal and the correct meal, and it was still crap, but at least I ate it and it was okay. But then when it was time to tip, I didn't tip him. I said $0 and 0 cents tipping because you're going to give me cold food and I'm not going to tip you. And on top of that, I'm sitting there trying to lick my plate. He takes the plate away from me. I was like, sir, I got food. I'm just trying to get all the ketchup and mustard and mayonnaise off my plate. And then he took my plate. So no, I didn't tip him. But then he got mad at me because I didn't tip. He's like, what? Asked me why I didn't tip. I said, because you suck. Oh
my God, Dewey, you had me all the way up until the point where you said I licked my plate. Licking, God, man, it's so hard to even know how to respond to you with that when you say stuff like that, Dewey. I was licking my plate, and the guy took my plate away. You guys have seen the new, and by new, it's like 3 years old now, Suicide Squad movie, right? They did the first one, and it was awful. And they said, we got to try this again. James Gunn came out with it. And there was that scene where like the little weasel character was licking the plate or licking the glass window. Is that what Dewey was doing? Is that what you were up to, Dewey? That's gross, man. If that's what you were up to. And now I don't feel bad. Now, I will say I was with you all the way up until then, because I believe the payment is for the food. So whatever you paid, $12, $20 for a cheeseburger, that's what you pay for. The tip is for the service. If the service sucks, the tip comes down. It's very simple. Very simple. I pay you for the food. I tip you for the service. Great service, you get a little bit more. I start at 20%. Some people might say that's generous. Some people might say that's not even close to being enough. But I start at 20%. It goes up and down from there, okay? You keep the water glass filled, goes up a little bit. It's empty most of the time, comes down a little bit. So there you go. John, you're raising it up and down. You got something to say.
I was going to say the biggest thing now is places like DoorDash, they put the tip in up front. So there's not even a chance to base on how good or bad the
I have a rule. Any restaurant that you go to where you have to walk up to the counter to order something and they have a little tip line, like little boxes that you select. If I have to come back up there and get it when you call my name or my number, you're not getting a tip because you didn't do anything. There was no service there.
Right.
I paid you for the meal. You didn't do anything on top of that. There was no service on top of that. So I now have a rule. I used to feel bad about not tipping in those situations. I don't feel bad anymore. I don't. And a lot of it is because they all are using the same software. I think it's like Clove or Clover software. Next time you go, if they got one of those little iPads, look for something that looks like a little Clover symbol on the little white plastic stalk that holds up the little iPad. They're all using the same software. And there's companies that don't have service as an element of what they do that still use that same software, and they just want to see if they can get you to do it. And the answer is no, I'm not doing that. Let's see. Dewey is more of a, okay. So Mad, you saw the photo that I put up on the stream. Now, anytime Dewey calls, you're going to see this. This is what I would imagine Dewey looks like. He's got his beer. Got his Camaro with the hood up, sitting on cinder blocks in a rough part of town. That's what I think Dewey looks like, so that's what I'm going to show every time Dewey calls in. Madcraft says, so Dewey is a Karen? What is happening now? And he also says, bingo, it's a built-in tip. Yeah, you shouldn't tip extra if they're already building it in, but they don't let you know that. They don't let you know that it's a built-in tip. Let's go to the phone lines again and bring in Rick in Greer and Tolos, 844-326-3663. Call in now to be a part of the show on the Tolo Takeover. Rick, I'm a little scared whenever you call in. What have you got today?
I'm going to be very nice. Dewey, stay out of Greer, okay? If you're in Greer, stay out of Greer. We don't want you in our restaurant.
He's already in Greer. That's the problem. He's already there.
Well, let me tell you, I'm getting in my car and I'm going to hunt for him, okay?
Okay. What are you going to do if you see him, Rick?
I got my dog with him. I'll stick my dog on.
Okay. JB says that Dewey is not from Greer. He's from Northern Greer. What do you know about Northern Greer, the north part of Greer, Rick?
A lot. I mean, he's probably up.
God.
He's not. He's up in that Jugs Factory section, which is that's the name of it, Jugs Factory.
Jugs?
Where he's from.
Is that where they make jugs?
Yeah.
Oh.
You don't want to know what kind of jugs.
Well, hey, not all jugs are created equal, Rick.
Now, I want to get my pick in.
Yeah.
West Virginia is playing too.
West Virginia is playing Kansas, and West Virginia are 13.5-point dogs.
I want Kansas plus 13.
Well, you want West Virginia plus 13.5.
West Virginia plus 13 again.
I like it. I looked at that game. I really did, Rick. What makes you pick that one?
I've seen Kansas play one time this year. They have a good defense, but they have no pass defense. and West Virginia's going to throw the ball all over.
All right, Rick. Appreciate the call.
I appreciate it. Hey, Dewey, stay out.
Thank you, Rick and Greer. Okay, let's go to the phone lines again. Another Tolo. This is one that we've never had call the show before. And thank you, Adam and Gaffney. First time calling the show. I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% positive, but I think this is your first time ever calling, right?
Yeah, man. I've texted in a few times.
Yeah.
Giving on this and that. Yeah, man. I was just going to call and chime in on the whole tip thing.
Yeah.
Went to a Spartanburgers game here a while back, and you know how they had the little self-serve thing. You go through and grab your food or whatnot, and then you go to the kiosk and check yourself out, and then I return and say, don't ask for a tip at the end. I'm like, come on, guys. I mean, you hadn't did anything, and now you're asking for a tip. But
I mean, I like the little self-serve, you know, the little whatever you call it. You go in, you grab your beer, you grab your sandwich, popcorn, whatever it is, and you take care of it yourself because people are slow.
Yeah.
God.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Hey, I just want to give you a shout out, man. I think you're doing a great job. We need to get up together and go fishing sometime, man.
Let's do it, Adam.
All right, man.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate you. 844-326-3663. Madcraft says Jug Factory Road or something. We found it in a building decades ago. I don't understand the words. Oh, there's a sign. He has the street sign. Madcraft has the Jug Factory Road street sign that he found in a building decades ago. Madcraft, you're like 28. What are you talking about decades ago? You're not old enough to use the term decades. Decades. God. That's wild. No, we had an intern in here. Not an intern. He was shadowing a couple weeks ago who, John, I swear to God, I almost strangled this young man, and he didn't deserve it, really, because nice young kid, smart, bright. But I've worked in this building longer than that kid's been alive. He was like a sophomore at Burns High School, and he was like, "How long have you worked here?" And I was like, "I've worked here 19 years." And he's like, "I'm only 16." And I almost said, "Get out. Get out." Jeez. Madcraft says, I was roughly 11 when I found that sign. Man, you know, we can't really do that anymore, Madcraft. You know, like when I was a kid, I lived on like a suburban street, but behind my house, they were building some apartments. It's like we were kind of up on top of the hill. You go down the bottom of the hill, and it was like around the corner. They were building new apartments. But that was the best part of my childhood because you know why? They had cleared the ground. It was flat, but the rain had like washed all these trenches in the dirt. So in my mind, I was pulling like G.I. Joe stuff, and I was like playing trench warfare as a little kid. Now, it was incredibly dangerous because there was like loose screws and nails, and I specifically remember like that metal flashing that they put on corners in construction. That stuff was everywhere. It was dangerous as hell, but it was my childhood, and it was great. It was great. Matt says, and Cole hates dogs. That's, you know what? That's a narrative that I support on the show. Keep it coming, Madcraft. 844-326-3663. Time is running out. If you want to be a part of this Tolo takeover, if you want to get in your upset picks, let's see. Shane W., he's taking Memphis plus 7.5 over Arkansas. Corn Chip says, wouldn't we feel sorry if that kid was a lot older and still in high school? What's wrong with the 16-year-old trying to shadow with something that he may be interested in? That's not the point, Corn Chip. You missed the point entirely. It's the fact that I've worked in this building longer than that kid's been alive. I don't feel like an old guy. I guess I'm becoming one.
That just made you old.
Yeah. Well, no, don't say it out loud. You get out. John, get out. Well, what most people don't realize is John is older than me. So there you go, old man.
I'm younger than my brother. So
by like 6 minutes, dude. You probably tell him that all the time. But most people don't know that John has an identical twin brother, JJ. And you might remember JJ on this show a while back. JJ another producer here on within Odyssey Greenville. He does a phenomenal job. You guys are both really good at what you do, and you have a tough job because you have to learn multiple studios, and they're all similar enough but just different enough that it makes it hard, right? You can't learn, this is the one way I do all of this in every studio I'm in, because every single one of them is set up slightly differently. But I appreciate having a young man of 16 years old who wants to get into broadcasting, wants to get into media production and creation, whatever the exact avenue is. We need more and more and more young people getting into it, because it's easy as easy as it's ever been to get into the business, the overall business of sports coverage, but it's really, really hard to make a name for yourself because there's so many people who are in it. Let's see here. Matt says, John, don't take that from him. Stand up to the man. Some kid in School of Rock. Appreciate that. See, I guarantee you, Madcraft, that 15-year-old kid who was shadowing has never seen that movie. He doesn't know. Shane Barrett says, I'm 30. Am I young enough? Well, 10 years, you'll be a man and you'll be 40. To quote, what's his name? God, I'm lost. I'm losing it now.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
There's this, because, in certain music genres, now the internet names you. So I'm not a YN, I'm an OG.
Oh, you're an OG now. Original gangster.
I didn't choose that, but it was like those are labels placed on you based on how like young or old you.
Mike Gundy. Thank you, Shane. I could not pull that word. Dewey, you're lying. You're not 67. It hurt the day somebody called me a millennial. I didn't like that at all. I was like, I'm not millennial. I'm Generation Y. I'm Generation Y. They're like, no, you're an elder millennial. That's even worse. Don't say that
elder
either.
Millennial? What?
Don't say that either. Coming up next, we have a guest that I have a tangential connection to. He is the exact same age as I am. He was a senior in college the year that I was a senior in college. We went to two very different institutions. However, we were in the same place at one point. My next guest, David Cohn, co-host of Crain Company on the Daily Wire. He was a quarterback at the University of Michigan the same year that I was a senior student, not an athlete, at Appalachian State University. He was there on the sidelines. I was way up in the stands watching the upset, the block heard round the world. David Cohn, Crain Company, talking all things sports next on the Fan Upstate. expectation was for him to be. And I know it's been kind of a slow build with Cade over the past couple of seasons. And this year he was supposed to ascend to be a Heisman quality quarterback. From what you've seen, what do you think the biggest problems are with Cade this season so far?
Well, that's a really good question. Slow build for him over the course of his career is a good term to use, and I don't hold that against him. Like you said, as someone who played the position, man, like if you can progress at all, that's a good thing. And the status quo for most guys is the slow build. The fact that we're seeing so many freshmen and sophomores be able to take over the game and perform the way they are really is extraordinary. But for Cade Klubnik, when you talk about that slow build, it was always, well, look at the way he performs against smaller competition or against lesser competition. He absolutely balls, right? It's against the stiffer competition. It's when you're opening up the season against Georgia in an Aflac kickoff game and you don't perform well, or against some of these tougher opponents that Clemson has faced, he doesn't perform well. That's what really stuck out to me last year against Texas in the college football playoff when he was going back home and, there was a lot of pressure on him. He performed really well. And I said, wow, that's Cade Klubnik maturing right before our eyes. It was the defense that gave up 293 yards of rushing or something like that against Texas for Clemson to be knocked out. And so I did buy into the fact that Cade Klubnik was going to sort of pick up right where he left off this year, and that hasn't been the case. And technically, it doesn't seem like things are clicking early on with Riley calling plays. But I get back to the point about Clemson writ large, and I'll say it specifically about Cade Klubnik. I do think he is going to figure this thing out. They're going to reel off a lot of wins. He's going to throw a lot of touchdowns. The question is, when you find yourself on the road at Florida State, or you find yourself in a rivalry matchup against South Carolina, or you do find yourself in the ACC championship or even the college football playoff, as crazy as that is to say right now at 1-2, will we see the best version of Cade Klubnik? Because we certainly hadn't seen it so far.
Talking to David Cohn. Find him on Twitter at David Adam Cohn, co-host of Crain and Company on the Real Daily Wire. Bryce Underwood there, your guy at Michigan, Arch, DJ Lagway, they're all young quarterbacks, and we all know that they're catching a million strays from fans all over the internet. They all say they don't hear it, but as a guy that played quarterback at a big-time university that you did, and given the modern social media era where access to players is unprecedented and frankly entirely too much, do you believe that those guys really can put up an impenetrable wall against all that outside noise?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Look, when you say that all those guys are young guys, that is correct, but they're not all the same age young guys, right? Bryce Underwood just turned 18 like 2 weeks ago. He hadn't even been on campus hardly for even a couple weeks. Arch Manning's in year 3 at Texas. While he hasn't been the starting quarterback, that's still, you're a junior as far as school is concerned, right? To get back to your main question, though, look, I don't think of myself as being that old, but when you talk about the fact that I showed up on campus 19 years ago to Michigan, times were different, right? And Facebook was just coming into, the national prominence, and we had coaches saying, hey, stay off Facebook and trying to regulate that. Well, now you're getting dings and notifications from every different media source in the country. I would like to think that these guys are so insulated within their programs and within their quarterback rooms that they're really not paying attention necessarily to what all of us in the media are saying. But at the same time, we have guys from these programs who watch our show, who follow us. And I don't know, I try and always, now that I'm on the other side of this, I try and be respectful to what these coaches are trying to accomplish and what these players are trying to accomplish, and just give straightforward analysis. I know that's not always what gets the most clicks or the most views that we see in our industry sometimes, but I always try and think, what if one of those players is listening to what I'm saying right now? Would I be proud or would I be ashamed of what I'm saying? What if one of those coaches is listening? That's how I kind of approach this job. And, I think what's best for them, though, is to go accomplish the task at hand and to sort of, drone out the outside noise.
Cohen, you talk about all the dings that these guys are getting across their social medias. And, you hear those stories about fans, upset fans, sending players Venmo requests because you cost me money on my wagers this weekend. You have to be getting some of that stuff too, right? I mean, you guys give some high level analysis. Do you have people DMing you and saying, hey, Coney, you cost me, a couple $100 because you said this was going to happen?
No, I haven't seen that so far. I sure wish it would happen, though, so I could get a good laugh. What a childish and immature response if you placed a bet based off what someone else said or what, how you thought a player was going to perform, and then you try and pass the buck on to someone else. If there's anyone who does that that's listening, shame on you. That's absolutely disgusting. But I would get personally a good laugh out of it. But I will say this, I do get variations of that. For instance, I had Michigan opening with a win against New Mexico. I had them losing to Oklahoma, and then I had them beating Central Michigan heading into this matchup against Nebraska. And just yesterday, someone said, well, clearly you don't know anything about college football. They posted that after I started 3-0 in my Michigan prediction, not before the season, but after I started 3-0. So even being perfect sometimes isn't good enough for some of these people. College football fandom truly should be studied.
Cone, it feels like we ought to be able to put cherry picking on our resumes nowadays because so many people are so good at that. Coney, you and I are roughly the same age, and you have a co-host in Jake who thinks and lives in movie references. So I'm sure you probably know the all-time great Heath Ledger movie, A Knight's Tale. You know that movie, right?
Love that film, man. The scene when he goes home and his dad is blind and he welcomes him in. It's hard for me not to get a tear in my eye during that scene every time I watch it.
Isn't it? I want to kind of bring it back to that. Remember that scene where Count Adamar is trying to figure out how to beat Sir Ulrich von Liechtenstein, and his advisor says, on a horse with a lance, that guy is unbeatable. Well, again, I'm going to keep it with your Michigan Wolverines, and they're set to face a Nebraska team that has the top pass defense in the country, 66 yards per game. So like Count Adamar, Michigan is going to have to get Nebraska on the ground. Justice Haynes, fantastic, number 5 running back in the country right now. Bryce Underwood, he's dynamic with his legs. Can those two by themselves put this game on their backs or their legs and go win this?
I'm just getting chills here thinking about A Knight's Tale quote. I really love that reference. Look, I'm usually very realistic, even borderline pessimistic when it comes to Michigan, but I really like them in this football game. Again, I think that Dylan Raiola is playing really well. I think that he is having a lot of success, particularly against zone coverage, and I think that he will have success throwing the football against Michigan's defense. Will that be big plays, though, or is he going to have to go 8, 9, 10 plays per drive? Look, I saw him do it, some against Cincinnati. I know they can do it, but how consistently can he do that to put up the amount of points necessary to score on Michigan's defense? That's a question that I have. So on the flip side, to answer your question, yeah, that Nebraska pass defense has been very impressive so far, but what about the run defense? Because so far, Justice Haynes, the transfer from Alabama playing running back at Michigan, has rushed for over 100 yards in all 3 games. And just last week, I know it was against Central Michigan, but we saw Bryce Underwood open things up with his legs, which is then going to open things up downfield. And while Nebraska fans may say, well, hey, it's a benefit for us for head coach Sharon Moore to be suspended this game. And yes, he was suspended this week throughout practice as well, which was not the case last week leading into Central Michigan. It could actually be a benefit for the Wolverines. And I don't say that as some knock against Sharon Moore, but I say it because Biff Poggi is allowing the coordinators to call their game plans. And I think when you're Chip Lindsey, you're new to campus, and Sharon Moore was the offensive coordinator prior, possibly there could be some friction just in terms of the identity that you want to put forward. And Sharon Moore, I mean, I saw him against Penn State when he filled in as the interim head coach for Jim Harbaugh. He didn't throw a single pass in the second half of that game in 2023 when Michigan went on to beat Penn State. It's a little bit different flavor of ice cream now that you've gone on the road against Oklahoma. You kept things a little bit more conservative. Oklahoma had a fantastic defensive game plan against Bryce Underwood in that offense, and they executed the game plan that they had. I think that the experiment of Bryce Underwood can just be average, and the Michigan team is good enough around him to win. I just don't think that has been the case so far. Bryce Underwood actually needs to be special, and I know that's a lot to ask of an 18-year-old kid, but that's why you come play quarterback at Michigan, so people can ask a lot of you. A lot is going to be asked of him on the road in Lincoln, Nebraska. I think he'll rise to the occasion, and the Wolverines will win.
At David Adam Cone at Crain Company is where you can find him and his show on Twitter. One portal window starting the day after the quarterfinals. The one portal window has been approved as of yesterday, I think. The exact timing has not. But if it happens that way, is that a good or a bad thing? I know Ryan Day has had his issues with that while it's still in the discussion phase.
I mean, does it feel like it unfairly affects the 1% programs who would still be playing at that time? Or should we just stop messing around and do this one window starting the day after the national championship game?
Well, look, I like when guys, have a plan and they commit to a plan and they say they evaluate themselves and their program fairly and thoroughly. And they say, you know what, this is not the best situation for me. I do think that I need to move on. And you should be able to do that and come to those conclusions with a single window. Does it limit player movement a little bit and maybe apply more pressure to get your decision right? Yes, it does. And I dealt with this at Michigan. Rich Rodriguez came in, ran a completely different offense. I knew at that point I would never be the starting quarterback at Michigan. And the decision was, should I stay? Should I go? Should I get my degree? What should I do? Yes, it weighs heavy. I know it does on these kids. But yes, I think a single window would benefit. But two things with it. One, here we are in week 4 with all these great matchups that we're talking about, and the NCAA drops this news. Give us something in April, May, or June. Let's make these decisions, right? And the second thing is it even going to stick? I mean, good on the NCAA for trying to come up with rules. I'm no huge fan of the NCAA, but there are instances where they get caught in between a rock and a hard place, and they just get sued in circuit court, and then they can't stick to any decision because their rulings are getting overturned. Is this going to be another one of those examples where there's a class action lawsuit and say, no, actually you can't limit player movement because there's no collective bargaining or something like that, and it just gets overturned again? I don't know. We'll just have to see on that.
Colin, my last question for you here. We're going to kind of stay in that realm here. Brent Pry out at Virginia Tech, Deshaun Foster out at UCLA after what, good God, might be the worst horse trade in the history of horse trades. We've all heard tell that players could be exiting their schools now because there's this 30-day transfer window that has been triggered. But I know there's like checks and balances and roster limits that other programs might keep that from happening. Are we, in your mind, headed for the select in-season transfers and regular season opt-outs to maintain eligibility? And could it get to the point where it's as bad as Virginia Tech and UCLA can't even field a team?
Well, again, getting back to like some of these problems that college football has have some very simple solutions. I mean, I don't understand why we're allowing transfers in the middle of the season like that, no matter what happens from a coaching standpoint, because you could still just do that at season's end and you're not going to be able to play. I mean, no one should be able to play from week 4 for one team to play for a different team in week 5 just because your other head coach left. I mean, that's just, to me, that's absurd. And so I hope we don't see that. Maybe there'll be a situation where, yes, if your head coach is fired, you can get in the transfer portal, but no one can accept you on the other end because, like I just said in my previous answer, we're right in the middle of a season and we're trying to focus on that. Again, so there's some elements of like NFL free agency that have worsened college football. There are some aspects of that I think college football is benefiting from a little bit. But again, this is why we need unified decision makers to be able to say, hey, here's what's best for the sport. Let's introduce these solutions and stick firm to them.
Well, I'm sorry, I lied there. I do need to ask you, South Carolina, Lenore Sellers, questionable this weekend. Without him, is there any chance they get it done on the road at Missouri?
Well, sure. I mean, this is SEC football, and we're talking about Shane Beamer, and there's still a lot of playmakers on both sides of the football for South Carolina. So technically, yes, there is a chance, and I've seen that line bouncing around. I mean, when it was 13.5, we were saying, oh, Lenore certainly isn't playing. Then it was 10.5. So I don't know what's going on. Obviously, I've been disappointed with the interior of that South Carolina team. We wondered if they hit the transfer portal effectively enough for the offensive line to be able to protect Lenore Sellers. That hasn't been the case, even though I will say the targeting call against him last week. I'm on a vendetta against targeting calls right now. I just think it's one of the things that's actually ruining college football. But with that said, I hope that he's okay. I hope that he's able to play. Obviously, he gives South Carolina their best chance to win. But man, this Missouri team, you're talking about one team that I was just really wrong on preseason. I just didn't know they'd be able to reload in the way that they have. And that's a credit to Coach Eli Drinkowitz. Bo Prabula is not only just, I mean, we knew he could use his legs, but throwing the football so effectively through the air. The hardy kid just runs so hard, the yards after contact. I really like this Missouri team.
He is David Cohn, co-host of Crain Company on the Real Daily Wire Network. Coney, you're the best. I appreciate your time, man. Good to finally talk to you for the first time. And, of course, I'll keep watching.
Thanks so much for having me.
That's David Cohn of Crain and Company. When we come back, his last name is another word for a hot dog. How about we talk hamburgers? It's National Hamburger Day. I'm giving you 5 toppings, the most elite burger you can build, next.
From start to finish and kick off the buzzer, this is Wired to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson on the Fan Upstate.
Tolos, did you know that today is National Cheeseburger Day? It's true. It's true. I love cheeseburgers. Obviously, if you saw me standing up, you would say, "Oh yeah, we can see it's you're kind of pear shaped," and it's because I love cheeseburgers too much. And the problem is, John, that you go to a lot of restaurants, even like good, like nice restaurants, they have cheeseburgers on the menu, and like these are places that sell like fancy stuff, like lobster mac and cheese and shrimp and grits and fish. Like you go to those places, they all have cheeseburgers and they're all massive. And that's the problem. And like, cause I can't, I don't eat enough lobster or shrimp or whitefish or whatever it is to know like, all right, I love this. And I know this is going to taste good, but I know that a cheeseburger is going to taste good. And that's one of those few things like, we had Dewey call in earlier about cold food, bad service. I don't normally send food back unless they cook my cheeseburger too damn much. Because I don't tolerate a well done cheeseburger. Like if it's at a place that's all they do, fine. You know, I know what I'm getting if I go to a fast food joint. But if I go somewhere and I'm spending $15 on a cheeseburger, that thing better be cooked medium rare and not a single degree more than medium rare.
Not a single degree.
Nothing. You people that like well done cheeseburgers, there's something wrong with you. You're a little sick in the head. But today is National Cheeseburger Day. So in light of that, I'm going to give you cheese because it's in the name Cheeseburger Day. I'm going to give you 5 ingredients to build your perfect cheeseburger. 844-FAN phone. Call in, text in. Give me your 5 ingredients on a cheeseburger, and we'll power rank the Tolos and what kind of burgers they like. Mine are, obviously, again, burger with cheese. Got to put a fried egg on there. Over medium, that's the best way to do it, a little bit runny. Bacon. I'm putting onions. I'm putting a little slaw on there. And mayo. Mayo counts as a top. Mayo, mustard, ketchup, that all counts as a topping. So that's my 5 right there. Dewey says, I like mustard, eggs, bacon, ham, and no, you don't, Dewey. No, you don't. You know, Dewey, somebody called in earlier and compared you to the Superhuman TV show, kid. You know, if you are an internet junkie like I am, you know who that is. He opens all of his videos. This is for the juggalos and the juggalettes. This is a Superhuman TV show. And I'm going to jump into this pile of scorpions, you know, like that kind of thing. Lester Green says, just had the crispy onion Whopper at Burger King, and that thing slaps. I mean, it's just barbecue sauce and onion rings on a regular Whopper, but man, it's good. If that's what you want to do, if you don't need anything more than that, you do you. John, 5. You get 5. Go.
Pickles, onions, tomatoes, mayo.
This is the most boring cheeseburger I've ever heard of. Good God, John. Come on. Use some creativity, man.
You want pineapples or something?
No, I don't. I mean, I think I've had it before, but I wouldn't go. It's not my go-to. Shane Barrett says, oh, John, lettuce, tomatoes, pickles, onions. Come on, that's like a jingle for there's one of those companies. It's their jingle.
I get a burger just whatever their day.
Yeah. Shane Barrett says, I'm about to go get so much hate for this, but the Impossible Whopper at Burger King is really good. Shane, did you let Dewey take over your phone? Philip Moore says, in winter, he goes chili and cheese only. In summer, lettuce, tomato, cheese, pickles, and jalapeno. Philip, I'm with you for adding a little spice, a little kick. Yeah. Take it up a notch, add fried jalapenos. Fried jalapenos and fried onions. It'll change your life. I'm telling you. I put fresh onions on mine, but hey, well, whatever. You do you. The Upset Picks Challenge still going on. Jarrett Tripp getting his in. Memphis plus 7.5 over Arkansas. And Keith in TR is taking Wyoming plus 13.5 over Colorado. Well, Keith and TR, I don't know if this helps or if this hurts your case, but you've already texted in and you can't change it now. Caden Salter is starting for Colorado this week. Deion Sanders has already revealed that. So The starter that came over from Liberty is now back in the driver's seat there at Colorado. When we come back, Cole, when we come back, John, force of habit, man. It's a son of a gun. When we come back, let's do what we call an old-fashioned audio blitz. We'll take you around the sports world in audio medium form and play you some clips from what some of the biggest figures are saying. That's next.
Always streaming on the free Honest.
I want you to know, Tolos, that I am efforting some updates on Connor Shaw's health condition. I reached out to Jack Veltri of Gamecock Central, and unfortunately, there's not a lot more out there other than what we already know, which is that he was in Simpsonville last night coaching his son's 8-and-under flag football team and just collapsed on the sideline. They had to do CPR. They rushed him off to Greenville Memorial Hospital, and he is now in stable condition. That is all we know at this point. We have had a couple of Tolos text in during the show saying, hey, what's the latest on Connor? Have you heard anything more about Connor? Unfortunately, no, we haven't heard anything more about Connor. But, I mean, that's not really surprising. It's whatever's going on, it's incredibly personal and private to him and to his family, so we don't deserve to know everything. And everybody's got this opinion like they deserve to know what's going on with every person they've ever heard of at all times. That's not the case. Social media has done that to us. That's one thing I wish we could get rid of, is this entitlement of feeling like you deserve to know what's going on with everyone at all times. Rant over. Okay, moving on. But as soon as I do hear something new, if I hear something new before the end of the show, here in the next 48 minutes, 50 minutes, I will let you know. There you go. And then, of course, that will have been publicly released. Coming up in the very next segment, Clay Hendrix, the head football coach of the 2-1 Furman Paladins. How about that? Not a lot of teams in the state of South Carolina can say they are 2-1. South Carolina can say it. Furman can say it. PC can say it. Clemson can't say it. Coastal can't say it. So shout out to them. They're winning football games. They're in locked in a couple of battles already this season, and they've come out on top in 2 of them. So can't wait to talk to the head Paladin in charge in the very next segment on the show. But let's hear from some of the biggest names in sports. This one, oh man, another one of those weird scenarios going on just up the road in Charlotte. Steve Smith Sr. We all know and love Steve Smith Sr. Fantastic wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers back in his day. He is an outspoken guy. He will tell you exactly how he feels. And Cole and I had the chance to chat with him a couple of months back at the BMW Charity Pro-Am. And man, he was so grateful to be there and to exercise and work on his golf game. And he was really excited about that. And what's funny is we're supposed to have him. And then in the chaos and the maelstrom, the media rep said, hang on, Steve's got to go talk to this guy first. And I think it was one of our local TV guys. And God bless him. Like, he was there working by himself. He's holding the microphone, doing the interview, and he's also holding the camera up on his shoulder. He's like, hey, Steve, what do you think about the Panthers this year? And he goes, man, I don't want to talk about the Panthers. Because I'm here to play golf. Let's talk about my golf game. Let's talk about my charities. Let's talk about all this stuff that's going on. And so we learned real quick, don't ask him about the Panthers. And he is not warmed up to this team very much since then. Now, he is a little bit more of a Bryce defender than I am. And he is a little bit more of a give him time to develop than I am. And he went on the Kyle Bailey show out of Charlotte sometime in the last 36 hours. And he let the Charlotte sports fans have it. I mean, he was all over them, calling them a bunch of boo birds and fair weather fans and this is and that's. Here's a tiny little sliver of what Steve Smith Sr. had to say about Carolina Panthers fans in the city of Charlotte on the Kyle Bailey show. John, can you turn co-host channel on and up? Here is Steve Smith Sr.
That's what this city does well, is bitch and complain. If you're going to ride and die with your team, ride or die. That's probably the problem with this weak-ass city, is the fair weather fans.
Oh. If you're going to ride or die with your team, then ride or die with your team. Stop bitching and moaning. Weak-ass city. That's what he had to say about the people of Charlotte. And they did not take that well. They came after him pretty hard on his social media accounts. Steve Smith then had something to say to those people.
Hey, what's going on, folks? It's been brought to my attention what I said on the radio Probably should have used some different words. But based on the DMs I've been getting from people, what I said, and then now you're saying you're going to threaten me, and you're going to pull up on me. I think that's a good idea. So I love this city. I invest in this city. My foundation in this city. But all these comments in my DMs, sliding my DMs, talking about you're going to pull up on me, you're going to threaten me. We don't need all that, man. We don't need no black on black on. So if that's how you really feel, just block me, bro. You don't have to. But all these comments threatening my life, ain't no need for that.
Is that really where we are? A guy said that you're soft, you're weak, you're fair weather fans for your Carolina Panthers. And your first response is, Steve, I'm going to murder you. What? That's a problem, man. Like we are, and I don't want to go into this, but we are locked in a debate over free speech in this country right now. Right now, we just saw a political commentator get shot in the neck and killed in front of his wife and kids. We just saw that. And now we've got television show hosts getting fired because the majority of their show is making fun of this administration. Again, I don't want to go into whether you like the different TV show hosts. I don't want to go into whether or not you like Charlie Kirk. That doesn't matter. There is something severely wrong with you. If somebody's saying you're a fair weather football fan, triggers a I'm going to kill you response. And like, there's a weird culture going on Twitter right now of people openly creating burner accounts. Like, it's a burner account, which is it's a fake account pretending to be somebody that they're not. But it's also very obvious that it's got the word burner in the name. So like if you would say David Tepper's burner, you're pretending, but trying to make it obvious that you are not David Tepper, but you're talking like you are David Tepper, which is it's a weird culture, right? We got people hiding behind this. Now, if anybody should be removed from the internet, it should be life-threatening language like that. I don't like what you had to say, and I'm going to kill you for it. You don't deserve to be on the internet. I don't know how to get those people off the internet. I don't know how to, you can delete somebody's account, block their account, take them down, and they'll just make another one 2 seconds later. I don't know how you undo that. I genuinely don't know. It is, as we've said on this station many times, whenever tragedies happen, we have a problem with heart in this country. People don't have any. They lack heart. They lack empathy. They feel like it's okay for them to literally say the worst, most repugnant and threatening things that they can think of, and nothing happens to them. So that's a weird spot. And I love Steve Smith, and I know a lot of our Tolos love Steve Smith as well from his time. I love him as a media member because I've had a chance to talk to him a couple times. He's a fantastic guy. Texter says, so what's with the news with the Wofford basketball coach? They said there were more details, but I couldn't find out much. Texter, I don't know how much of this I'm allowed to say. It's not any kind of cancel culture thing. I can utterly assure you that. It has nothing to do with that whatsoever. Okay? Trying to figure out the best way to say this because I don't know that this has been reported publicly, okay? It has something to do, and this is what I've been told, has something to do with university funds and the possible misallocation of them. So it had nothing to do with cancel culture, has nothing to do with something that Dwight Perry, this is who you're talking about, head coach at Wofford, who was just let go. I mean, if you're going to let him go for his record, because it wasn't stellar. But yeah, it's it's not as racy as you think it is. I promise you that. Texter says our society today can't handle criticism. Yeah. And it's the criticism of saying you're a fair weather fan because you turn on your team very, very quickly. And I get it. Panther fans are incredibly frustrated. Big majority of that falls on Dave Tepper, constantly rolling through coaches and forcing his quarterback pick. I mean, think about it. CJ Stroud should probably be a Carolina Panther right now if it wasn't for Dave Tepper. Don't know if that could or would have been the case. But man, we are twisted up if our first response is, I don't like something you said, so I'm going to message you directly and tell you I'm going to end your life. That's an awful place for us to be. Next up, let's hear from the Illinois head football coach Brett Bielema, whose team is going to be facing the neighboring Indiana football team. Both of them ranked. I don't know when the last time was that these two teams were ranked this highly. Shane Beamer had his awesome run-in with Brett Bielema last year. I love that kind of stuff. It's so funny to me. Let's hear from Brett, and he says he's talking about the instincts versus planning when it comes to communicating with his team.
Ironically, you just rely on your instincts. I may or may not have let a chair fly on Saturday, but like that was just because the chair was there. I didn't go into that moment expecting that, right? It was just kind of sitting there, and it looked like it said, "Toss me." But it just kind of depends on what's going on. I think the part that really, truly, in my 17 years as head coach, in moments where you don't really have a script, you don't have a narrative, you rely on your instincts. And I think that's the part that I think as a head coach now, I go back to a year ago, so Michigan and Indiana played a game 10 last year. We played Michigan in game 7. So when I started watching games this past February, I went to that game because I knew a lot about Michigan. I didn't know a lot about Indiana. And, that ended up being a 2015 game. So I really looked at that game. What it also made me think about when you just asked this question, last year against Michigan at halftime, I didn't say one thing to my offensive or defensive coordinators. I knew there was a play that I wanted to run on punt. We ran a fake punt in the second half. So at halftime, I kind of had that moment where I got right with what I needed to get done. I took the video pad to the couple players that were involved in it. I went in and said to my offensive defense coordinator, let's stay true to what we're doing. The game plan's working. Let's do it better. I literally said as minimal as I'd ever said to my coaches and really to my players at halftime of Michigan, which was our biggest win here in Memorial Stadium to this point. So every game is just a little bit different. You just have to rely on what you know as a head coach.
I'm sure there's a lot of coaches that really, burn themselves out trying to think of the right words to say to a team to motivate them. A guy like Brett Bielema, he's like, I don't worry about that too much anymore. And it's funny is the way he described that situation. Do you have halftime speeches ready? He's like, I don't know. Just chair said, throw me. And I threw the chair. I compare him a little bit to our next guest who's going to be on the show with us, Clay Hendrix, because he also, you ask him sort of thought-provoking questions. He's like, I don't really think about it that way anymore. Because he's been around the game for a long, long time, and he's been in these situations many, many times. And, you don't plan it. You don't plan what you're going to say to him. You don't plan how you're going to handle certain situations. You just operate by feel. Let's go to this one. This is Ben Johnson, head football coach of the Chicago Bears, says that his team has not really been practicing all that well lately, and he quipped at this with the NFL's Dave Kleiman.
I think our practice habits are yet to reflect the championship caliber team.
That's a very nice way of saying we practice like crap. We suck in practice. We don't have any heart. We don't have any fire. Let's go to CJ Stroud on his team has not started off very well, the Houston Texans. Here's what CJ Stroud has had to say about what they could be better at.
I don't know, everything. I can always be better. I told D'Amico the other day, if anything he sees or anybody sees I can be better in, let me know. I think my process has really been good lately. I see the field well, putting the ball where it's supposed to be, with the coverages and whatnot. And some things it's just I didn't really get a ton of reps with some of the guys we're getting in the game at receiver. So that's a little bit of a challenge. But I think that's one of my biggest things, just being the coach on the field, and taking that step. And it takes time. It's not overnight. So that's an area I think I can grow.
And here is last one here for you. Joe Flacco, the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, talking about facing the very good Green Bay Packer defense, which he's going to have to face this weekend.
Yeah, they're good. They got a good front. It always presents challenges. That's what defenses are trying to do. They're trying to stop the run and make you one-dimensional and then get after the passer. So it's our job to match that physicality and do the best we can in those areas of the game. I mean, that's the constant battle. Anytime you're going against a team with a good front, though, they obviously, it's a challenge, and that's what we're getting ready to do this week.
God, Joe Flacco is so dull. Joe, punch it up a little bit. Could you take some shots at the Packers? Oh, you're probably going to retire after this year anyway. It's the last time you're going to face the Packers. Just talk some trash, would you, Joe? We're going to have in the next segment a very special guest, the head football coach of the 2-1 Furman Paladins. Man, they have been really playing some cardiac football out there. I can't wait to chat with Clay Hendrix. You Furman fans, we'll have Clay Hendrix, head football coach of Furman, next on the Fan Upstate. Momentarily going to be joined by Clay Hendrix, the head of football coach of the Furman Paladins, just up the road on the north side of Greenville, off to a really hot start, a really fun and entertaining start to the season. Look, every fan wants their team to win comfortably, easily, by 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns. That has not been the MO for the Furman Paladins this season, but they have nonetheless gotten off to a 2-1 start. 23-21 victory in week 1, a 1-point loss in week 2 against Presbyterian, and then a 4-point victory last weekend on the road at Campbell. And to talk about it, we bring in the head football coach of the coach. I don't know if you knew this. The only team in the Southern Conference right now that is sitting with a 2-1 overall record, a plus 500 record. That's a distinction, my friend. How does that feel?
Well, as I've told our team and a lot of people, we're about, I could hold my 2 fingers and we're about, we're about an inch from being 3-0 and we're about an inch from being 0-3. And I think, we've been in 3 really hard games. Had a chance to win all 3, had a chance to lose all 3. But I do like the fact we're getting better, and I do think we have some talent. I think we're as good as anybody, and so it's just a matter of who can keep improving. And we needed to bye this week, so I feel pretty confident we can get the job done on Saturday against the bye.
I hear you, Coach. You've been around this game for a while, and think back on some of those teams that you have. Inevitably, you'll have those seasons where you're having to fight tooth and nail to win 2- and 3-point games week in and week out. What does that really do to a team when it comes to the terms of like galvanizing a team down the stretch, having those hard fought wins?
Well, we've certainly been battle tested in 3 games, and we're going to be in some more of those, I guarantee you, throughout this year. I told our team one of the things that's kind of impressed me about our group, because we've had a lot of swings. We've been ahead, we've been behind, we've had positive, we've had some lows, and I just think this group's remained pretty steady throughout the whole process. So sometimes you can just feel that on the sideline. And, somebody, one side of the ball's got to lift the other side up. And, we've been able to do that to a pretty good degree, again, as we keep improving. And, we've played some pretty good ball at times, but, we can certainly play a lot better, and we'll need to. And that's really just kind of where our focus is on. We, had a little adversity the week before, and I thought we handled that pretty good. Now we had some success, and can we have some humility and keep working. And I like the way we practice, this week, and as we get ready to open our conference next week.
Talking to Clay Hendrix, head football coach of the Furman Paladins. I know, Coach, the season is young, just 3 weeks in, but as you look for those sort of things as a head coach, are there things that cropped up in week number 1 and then later on down the stretch, weeks 2, weeks 3, that you could say, oh, we've been here before and we handled it better than we did the first time?
Yeah, I think it's our game's a little bit of a peaks and valleys kind of game, and you try to stay out of the valleys and off the peaks, and don't get too high, don't get too low, and I think they've been pretty consistent with that. When we've not done some things well, we've still had a couple of procedure pre-snap penalties that we've got to get fixed. We did really only had 1 turnover Saturday, but they didn't have any. And it's hard to win a game really when you do that, but eliminating turnovers, did a really good job of eliminating negative plays and then creating some on defense. So I think for us to keep improving it, it's kind of an unusual group. We're a relatively young group. Our quarterback's a true sophomore, our tailback's a true sophomore, and we had a true freshman. Really one of only 2 that we're playing right now. He was the National Player of the Week as a freshman last week. And now the defense player of the week in our league was our defensive end. He's a sophomore. So, which is a good thing. But I think sometimes it's still, the little bit of the football immaturity shows up, or inexperience shows up from time to time. And I don't really know how to grow them up fast, but that's kind of our job as coaches to, keep developing them. And again, hopefully we can, be a much better team as the year goes on.
Coach, tell me about this stable of running backs that you've got here. You're saying all of them pretty young. CJ Nettles, he's a freshman. You're talking about Gavin Hall. He's a sophomore. Talk about how you like to use each one of them, how they sort of compare and contrast. And do you look at them as situational backs, or is it more you get a guy a sequence or a series, and then you let some other guys rest up so that they're fresh and ready to go back in?
But they got similar skill sets. It's funny. Gavin Hall was a high school quarterback, and last year he played running back, and then played last year for us as a true freshman. So I don't think he and CJ's their skill set's much different. So I'm not sure that comes into play. Jaquan Smith was a young man that came back from a brutal injury, 2 years ago, and he's a little different. He's more of the bigger, kind of hammered at him kind of guy that we've continued to get him in there. Probably need to get him in there a little bit more. And I think one of the things we've got to be better at running the football. I do think in a couple of games, we've seen people really selling out, schematically and from a number standpoint to make it tough to run the football. And, I credit our coaches, Jeff Roper, offensive coordinator. I mean, certainly Campbell did that Saturday, and our guy had a heck of a day. I think he was, he's complete almost 75% of his passes in 3 games, and had a huge day. He was player of the week in our conference. And I just think I think it's a little bit of playing to your strengths, and hopefully we can get the box a little lighter, which is going to continue, I think, to help the running game, because we certainly shown you we can hurt you throwing the football.
Coach, as you look across this Southern Conference landscape, and you've got a week off, so you've got some time now to really think about it and do more of a big picture look here. How do you spend the bye week if you're not preparing for Samford, or do you spend extra time preparing for Samford, who you have in like a little over a week and a half?
Well, we took Sunday completely off. Sunday would be a work day for us in the afternoon. Monday's typically the off day for the players. The only thing we did Monday was we watched our game from Saturday, and we got a lift in. We usually lift with our guys that are playing twice a week, and then we, on Tuesday we went out and just did a little conditioning, and then we practiced the last 2 days, and we did a little Samford stuff. We did a little good on good, but we did a little Samford stuff. But we've been a little beat up. It's funny, in 3 games we really haven't lost anybody for significant time, but we've had, I counted up, we've had 9 DBs parts of 3 games, and it's been like a little bit of a different group each week, so we've been a little bit banged up there. We got a chance to get 2 or 3 guys that we haven't had all season, have them ready to go for Samford, which certainly will be a big plus if we can get them. But I think we have a chance to be as healthy as we've been since early August, next week. So it was trying to get better, spending time fundamentals, but just tried to really focus on, can we get healthy? Certainly didn't do a lot of physical stuff, a lot of eating, and, we did do some good on good stuff, but I just think that was kind of focused. We're going to play 9 games straight now. We had the earliest bye of anybody in our conference, and again, it came. I think buys are good when you need one, and we needed one. So I think it came at a good time for us. And but we got to strap it on. We got a long stretch ahead of us.
Now, Coach, you said it was a lift day. Did you jump on the bench? What are you benching these days, Coach?
I don't lift with them. I try to get in there about 4 days a week doing something. I try to keep, as the old told, I'm trying to keep the old man out. So I try to do something about 4 days a week, and I kind of enjoyed the upper days better than the lower days. Because I've learned I still got to. If I miss a lower day, I'm so sore the next time I go that it makes it tough. So no, I don't get in there with them, but we got in there, both Monday and Wednesday with our players. Wednesday's a normal lift day for us anyway.
Coach, as we were saying, you got a week off, and then you face Samford's 9 straight games after that, starting next weekend. We were talking earlier about the run game. Who do you really need to get that run game fixed the most before you play that team?
I don't know. That's hard to say. I think it would help us in every single game. Probably Sanford, I could say that, but I don't know. And it's funny. I think we're really close in that area. It's the old saying about offense and defense. On offense, it only takes one guy to screw it up, and you could have 10 doing really good things, and one guy kind of screws it up. And defensively, you could have 5 guys screw it up, and somebody covers for them. And I think that's a little bit of where we are. It's kind of that one guy that is kind of hurting us a little bit in the run game. So, I think we have good players. I think we have good players in the offensive line. The one thing I like about this group, I don't think we have a big deficiency anywhere. Sometimes you feel like we're just not very good in certain spots. Now, we're not as experienced as we'd like to be in a few spots, but we're just going to continue to work at it harder. And, I think we've done some great things in the passing game. And I think that's important. Hopefully we get to the point where people got to decide if they're going to gang up on us or not. I mean, certainly, Campbell kind of took that approach, and we had a big day throwing the football. And, we left some points out there that we should have got, but we're going to continue to work at it.
Coach, last week I got a little philosophical with you, and I asked you how you had addressed the Charlie Kirk shooting with your team. I'm not going to go that deep and dark with you this time, but famously, Nick Saban used to talk to his team about rat poison, all those little things that could distract you away from your ultimate goal. Now, your team is currently starting to get a little bit of love in that FCS poll and sitting about 5 or 6 spots out of being ranked. Have you started to address that fact with your team and how to keep them from maybe feeling themselves a little bit too much, or how have you done that in the past?
Well, I really hadn't. I think I just think our folks have been on every day we go out there. Let's just try to get a little better at something. And we got a pretty mature group. We got smart guys. I don't think I have to play mind games with them, but I also think that you also can remind them of things, and you don't take anything for granted. We're certainly not a good enough football team to, I don't know. I think about my whole career. Yeah, I'm sure I've been a part of some teams in some weeks where you didn't have to be at your best to go get it done. I don't think we're that kind of team. I think we're a team that's got to play at a high level every week. Now, I think it gives us a chance to be a really good team if we'll continue to do that. But no, I'm a big Coach Saban fan. I've seen that, enjoyed it, and I would imagine when you're at Alabama, you had to deal with that a little bit. But this whole poll thing, I still think it's kind of ridiculous that we even have the polls. Really, before about, I don't know, I kind of think about 4 games in, maybe get close to October, is really the first time the poll really should come out. Based on what teams have done in 2025, because 2024 doesn't matter. And, it's no different where we were picked. We were picked where we were because of, I guess, the way we played 2024. We're a completely different team in a lot of different ways. So, if you take care of this, you win games, all that other takes care of itself. I have learned it does help when you can get in there. We're in a playoff system. The polls do matter. But I think sometimes there's too much of an emphasis on them early in the year. So, if we'll keep taking care of business, then we'll be where we want to be.
Coach, you mentioned them there, and as a matter of fact, I was going to ask you about them anyway, so it was perfect timing. You mentioned the playoff format there, and I was when I was in college, I was at Appalachian when it was a 16-team playoff. Now it's all the way up to 24-team playoff, and obviously they're talking about doing that at the FBS level as well, expanding the college football playoff. In your mind, as a guy that's been around the game for as long as you have, what's the ideal number of playoff spots for an FCS playoff, or even bigger picture for the FBS playoff?
I don't know. When I was a player at Furman, it was 12 teams, and it started out as 12. You had 4 teams for the buys. I've never thought a team should have a bye. I just think if you're going to have a playoff, everybody should have to play at least the same number of games. And I don't know. I kind of like the 16 number. And then, a little bit, I don't know, a little bit of this, everybody's got, we got to be a little bit inclusive, and we got to, give this league an automatic bid, this league an automatic bid. Now, like for instance, the Ivy League is taking an automatic bid this year. Well, that's one less opportunity, for somebody to get an at-large bid. So when they went to 24, again, I just assumed they should have gone in and go to 32. And I think right now that's probably what it should be. And I just don't think, and I'm pretty certain of this, nobody's ever won it that didn't get a bye in the first round. And, I know we had a bye 2 years ago, and certainly made a big difference. So that you'd like to be one of those top 8 seeds. But I would rather see it where everybody had to play the same number of games. But now, realistically, how many teams are there who you truly think have a chance to win it all? I don't know. It's not 32. It's probably not 24. And it's probably not 16. But if they're going to go to 24, to me, just say go ahead and add 8 more and make everybody play a first-round game.
Coach, with your week off this weekend, how are you going to maybe celebrate it is the right word? Or are you going to be sitting in front of the TV or multiple TVs, eating chicken wings, drinking beer? Or how do you spend your bye weeks?
Well, I think every year, I don't have a tradition. Every year is a little different. In fact, tonight I'm driving to Sumter, South Carolina. I have to speak in the morning. They have a 7 a.m. Touchdown Club in Sumter tomorrow morning. So Lee Glaze, it's funny. Here's an old Furman guy, an old Citadel guy. He invites me to come down there. It seems like every other year I've gone down there. So I'm on the way down there to stay there tonight. I'll be there tomorrow morning. I'm going to do a little bit of recruiting, a few stops tomorrow. And then I'm actually going to go see my mom and dad. So, they're from down in Commerce, Georgia, not far down the road. And it's kind of hard to get down there and really fortunate to have my mom and dad. So I'm going to get down and see them probably a good bit tomorrow, maybe come back to Greenville on Saturday morning. And then, I'm sure I'll probably have a list of things I'm supposed to do when I get home from my wife. But we'll sit there and probably just watch a little bit of football and a little bit of that. So I don't know. It's just good to get a little bit of a break, let somebody else stress out a little bit. And so get a chance to watch some games. May get a chance. I know Sanford plays at Western Carolina. We play Western, I think, sometime about the middle of October. So we'll see both those teams coming up pretty soon.
Coach, isn't it amazing? Just like the conversation around the playoff, those honey-do lists, they only expand. They never shrink.
Oh, no doubt. They've been yeah.
That's Clay.
I got it pretty good. My lists over there aren't too long. So she's been a coach's wife for 33 years, and so she understands that part of it. And I was speaking to a group earlier today, and I said, people like to talk about coaching being a calling. I said, you want to talk about a calling? A calling is being a coach's wife, because that is a calling in itself. And so she's put up with a whole lot more than I have of me being gone and not there and all those things. And so I don't know, but it'll be nice to be able to be home on a Saturday, because it'll be a while before we get to do it again.
That's it. Coach, you're the best. Congratulations on the success so far. Obviously, more of it to come, we hope.
Hey, thank you. It's great being with you, and you guys have a great weekend as well.
All right, good luck this weekend. Go get you a good one, okay?
Thank you.
There you go. Clay Hendrix, head football coach of the Furman Paladins, right here on the Fan Upstate. He joins us every Thursday at this time. So you Furman fans, this is your opportunity to find out more and more about your Paladins every single week. We got upset picks that keep on coming in. We've got your texts and some of your messages on the stream as well. We'll get to those. Close out the show next, right here on the Fan Upstate. So you know how there's way too early Heisman odds and way too early top 25s every year? Well, folks over at USA Today are already putting out their way too early eliminated from playoff contention teams. And the newest one released by USA Today's Blake Topmeyer. I don't know him. I don't know his stuff. Not impugning him at all, but his projection says Clemson is out of the college football playoff conversation. Out of it. Well, they're not out of it. They're never out of it, especially in the ACC, right? When they could go on a run, and they could go 7-1 in conference, which I fully believe that Georgia Tech, as good as they may be this year, they're going to drop a game or two. And if they drop two, that would really help. But this Clemson team still has the opportunity to go 7-1 in conference, which probably get them into the conference championship game. They win that game, they're in, right? That there's always a path to get in if you are in a power conference. Just go win your conference championship game. I look at the schedule. They're favored by 17.5 against Syracuse. They're going to be favored big at North Carolina and BC. SMU, I mean, they haven't looked incredible this year. They took Baylor to the wire. Maybe that would give Clemson some pause. But I think by then, maybe Clemson has it figured out. I don't think Clemson is eliminated from the college football playoff picture yet. So to go that far, that right there says, hey, stop reading my stuff. If you're a Clemson fan, stop reading Blake Topmeyer because he thinks you're out. I think that's a reach. Do I think Clemson goes 7-1 in conference this year? No. I do think they drop at least one in conference beyond the Georgia Tech game. So drop two, whether that's SMU at home or Florida State at home or Louisville on the road. If I had to bet, I'd say it's Florida State at home. That's going to be a fun night, isn't it? The number 7 team in the country right now, Florida State possibly coming in. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole. Bryson Tolo has been an absolute blast hosting with you today. Cole Bryson going to be back tomorrow as he's going to be on the call of Burns football. So he'll be out on the road on location, and I'll be here with you on the Fan Upstate.